Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 595, Breaking the Cauldron. After the golden brilliance shot out from the center of the brow of the spirit phantom, it flew towards Chen Hao and continued to grow on the way, eventually turning into a long sword with a solemn shape and mysterious symbols engraved on it. It was the sword shadow that only existed on the lake's surface from the Sky Overlord. At that time, the spirit phantom touched the sword shadow and took it in. After that, Luo Yang could summon the sword shadow from the shadow to attack. But the sword shadow summoned by Luo Yan was just a sword-shaped shadow, and the sword shadow was very small, only 3 inches long from beginning to end. However, the sword shadow that shot out from the center of the brow of the spirit phantom was the normal length of a long sword, and the shape was clear, and even the mysterious symbols on the sword were not missing. This sword shadow, with a stream of light and color, dragged out a golden rainbow, and instantly passed through the human nightmare transformed by Chen Hao. The human nightmare inherited some of Chen Hao's experience and abilities before his death, so after the transformation, he used a sniper rifle to attack Luo Yan. Now that it was crossed by the sword shadow, both the gun and the person suddenly became translucent, as if they had also turned into a phantom. Then it disintegrated silently, turning into countless fine dust powders, which slowly drifted away and disappeared. On the other side, with Chen Hao's shot as a prelude, other human nightmares also launched attacks on Luo Yan. Jiuying's human nightmare shook his hands and ejected tens of thousands of black hairpins. Each hairpin was stained with the breath of cursed nightmare and rolled towards Luo Yan frantically. At this time, the shadow of the soul gathered and directed, and the sword shadow in the distance shot back. The sword shadow came like a rolling thunder, breaking through the ubiquitous smoke, dragging out a gilded rainbow gas, and passed through the thousands of black silk threads of Jiuying's human nightmare. Immediately, the thousands of black silk threads were neatly cut by the sword shadow, and those black silk threads that were disconnected from the human nightmare all turned into debris. Those that were still connected to the human nightmare ignited gilded flames, and the flames flowed back, sweeping towards the human nightmare along the thousands of hairpins. Suddenly, strands of gilded light ignited in the field, which was spectacular. Other human nightmares were not idle either. Lang Feng's human nightmare roared, and the black secret symbol twisting on his chest spread and swam between his palms like a bug. As the human nightmare clapped his hands forward, a raging black flame suddenly appeared. The black flames covered the sky and bombarded Luo Yan. These flames all exuded the breath of cursed nightmare. If they were touched by even a trace of it, there would be a disaster. At this time, Luo Yan's whole body exuded a strong blood light, turning the area within a radius of 1 kilometer into a blood pool. Secret method, Blood Pagoda. After the secret method was activated, the cracked shadow crossed the surface of the pool, picked up a ball of illusory blood, and swept forward again. The blood was swept away by Luo Yan's sword, turning into a blood-red half-moon, and the 2 blood blades that followed broke the black flames in the sky and cut out a passage. The crescent moon broke the clouds. The new moon, however, in the black flame passage that was cut open. In front, the human nightmare transformed by Song, who punched repeatedly, blasting out a group of frosty white tigers, which pounced on Luo Yan with their fangs and claws. Behind Luo Yan, Zhu Kan's human nightmare, who had disappeared, silently approached, flashing 2 swords, and was cutting Luo Yan's flesh and bones with blood. Being attacked from both sides, Luo Yan's face remained normal. The power of the splitting star sword suddenly became ethereal and uncertain, and the long sword stirred the blood pool water and shook it lightly forward. Suddenly, the blood rain in the sky was like a continuous spring rain, and it was like fine mist and rain, pouring out all at once, and there were several white frost tigers in the sky. Secret skill, Xing Feng. Suddenly, the frost tigers suddenly dissipated, and the blood rain continued to pour on Songhu's human nightmare, and the human nightmare was immediately riddled with holes. Then thousands of blood blades soared into the sky, blasting it into pieces and scattering. After killing the frost tiger and the human nightmare, Luo Yan's figure flashed, like a dragonfly touching the water, leaving several ripples on the surface of the blood pool. He had moved more than 10 meters, making ZHUZ's human nightmare's butchering knife technique useless. Although ZHUZ's human nightmare had hidden his figure, he could not hide the biological grey light. Under the vision of the Wu Wang burning eyes, Luo Yan could clearly see that patches of red spots appeared in the biological grey light of ZHUZ's human nightmare. That was the mark made by the Wu Wang burning eyes, which meant that invisibility was also a kind of delusion in the eyes of the Wu Wang burning eyes. Luo Yan was not polite and immediately detonated those red spots, causing ZHUZ's human nightmare to erupt with crimson flames all over his body. Under the power of breaking delusion, ZHUZ's human nightmare's body turned into a pile of dry bones in an instant. At the same time, Washen's phantom controlled the sword with his fingers, controlling the sword shadow to constantly wander around Jiuying and Lan Feng's two human nightmares. But the gilded brilliance was seen tirelessly sweeping around the two human nightmares, creating a dense firework. When far away, it was 1,000 meters away, and when close, it just passed by, or drew an arc or a straight line, coming and going, without any rules. But after this period of wandering, the two human nightmares, like Chen Heio, first became translucent, and then turned into debris all over the sky, disappeared in the air. So far, all the human nightmares transformed by Song whose team were killed by Luo Yan. At this time, the phantom of the Yuanshan turned to the incense burner in the distance, and it seemed to react to the mountain river cauldron and the furnace. When a feeling of resentment and disgust was fed back to Luo Yan, the phantom of the Yuanshan pointed at the incense burner, and the gilded sword shadow instantly passed through the incense burner, so fast that Luo Yan could hardly react. In Luo Yan's Wu Wang burning eyes, he saw the dark red and almost black blood river cauldron in the incense burner, which was split into two by the gilded sword shadow. When the sword shadow passed through the mountain river cauldron, the several mysterious symbols on the sword shadow all lit up, emitting a barely perceptible aura of suppression. Before Luo Yan could interpret the meaning of this, the blood river cauldron suddenly expanded and turned into an illusory blood bowl tens of meters high. When the incense burner shattered with a click, it shattered with another bang, and one after another illusory blood river rushed and spread like a flood, and one of them even came towards Luo Yan. In those blood rivers, violent energy was soaring to the sky, and twisted and crying figures kept floating in the river. It was as if countless corpses were soaked in the blood water. Blood river, corpses, crying, stench. Violent energy was soaring to the sky, and filthy water was flowing. Even though Luo Yan was determined, he couldn't help but change his face when he saw this scene. But at this moment, the shadow of the Yuanshan flew back, and a golden brilliance with majestic righteousness and magnificent power swam in the filthy blood river. The first section of the blood river immediately vanished. Then the sword shadow rushed in front of the blood river and came in front of Luo Yan. The sword body suddenly expanded by 3 points and then rotated like a wheel to resist the blood river water that was whistling. The green dragon on the Yuanshan virtual shadow also roared, rushed out, and its body expanded. The two protruding golden dragons grew rapidly. In a blink of an eye, the green dragon turned into a dragon, a golden horned green dragon, and swam around Luo Yan. Wherever the green dragon passed, the dirty water evaporated and dissipated into wisps of dark red mist. The green dragon also spewed out red flames from time to time. As the flames swept, smoke billowed at the scene. Together with the colorful sword shadows and the red flames, it was a brilliant and gorgeous sight. Chapter 596, Devouring everything for your own use. But when the sword shadow and the green dragon blocked the blood river, the phantom of the lizard dragon suddenly expanded. The body size increased by more than 3 times, and the length from head to tail exceeded 10 meters. Then the phantom of the lizard dragon suddenly pounced into the dirty water of the blood river next to it, devouring it voraciously, and actually devoured the filthy thing with murderous aura. Luo Yan was stunned. He was a little worried when the dragon blood essence devoured the disaster light before. Now that the phantom of the lizard dragon actually devoured the blood river, his heart could not help but rise to his throat. Now looking carefully, Luo Yan found that this phantom had changed greatly compared to the past. The phantom of the lizard dragon was first seen on the day when the captain of the 7th team of the Jiuying department, Zhang Ze, was killed. At that time, the phantom of the lizard dragon only showed half of its body, and the image was not very clear. But now, this lizard dragon not only has a clear image, but also fierce eyes and clear textures. Moreover, a black curved horn emerged on the forehead, and black bone spurs grew on the back and limbs, echoing the appearance of Luo Yan's transformation into a dragon posture at this time. It can be seen from this. Ever since the dragon blood essence swallowed the red fruit that the overlord beast who vomited after his death, a change has occurred. After that, the dragon blood essence has a tendency to devour everything for its own use. It devours all kinds of things wantonly. From the toxins released by the Huangquan members at the beginning, to the death of Aoyi later, it has now begun to devour the disaster light and the blood river. After swallowing these things, the dragon blood essence continues to grow, and has already broken away from the concept of the blood essence of the giant beast. The strengthening of Luo Yan's body is also gradually developing in a weird direction. I don't know what kind of fate the transformation into a dragon posture will eventually go if it continues like this. The blood river tripod is broken. Filth is flowing. However, after the initial outbreak, the impact of the blood river filth gradually subsided and then disappeared. They were originally illusory things, and they did not merge into the ground. Luo Yan just watched them gradually disappear into the air. Soon, the sword shadow did not need to continue rotating, and the azure dragon also shrank back to its original size. The bloody river and dirty water had disappeared. After resisting for such a while, the azure dragon could be seen to be very weak. Both eyes were lifeless, and it looked tired and sleepy, and returned to the Yuanshan virtual shadow listlessly. It was wrapped around the arm and waist and back, and it did not move. Even the sword shadow was no longer as clear as it was at the beginning, and the image became blurred, as if it would disappear at any time. The Yuanshan virtual shadow pointed at the eyebrows, and the sword shadow flashed away, constantly shrinking, and finally turned into a golden light, and sank into the eyebrows of the Yuanshan virtual shadow. The sword shadow was a rootless thing, and it could only exist by relying on the Yuanshan virtual shadow. The Yuanshan virtual shadow contained it in its body, nourished it with its own vitality, and only flew out of the body when needed. After attracting the sword shadow, the Yuanshan virtual shadow disappeared into the air. As for the lizard dragon, it also ate and drank enough, and its body gradually shrank, and finally shrunk into Luo Yan's body. The scales on Luo Yan's body disappeared, and he lifted the dragon transformation posture. Looking at the place where the blood river cauldron was before, the cracks there began to collapse, and the disaster light in it quickly dimmed. In the blink of an eye, the cracks collapsed, and the disaster light was completely extinguished. Luo Yan raised his head, and the black mysterious symbols in the sky had disappeared at some point, and he didn't see any of them. Only then did Luo Yan breathe a sigh of relief. But thinking that Song Hu and others were all killed here, Luo Yan's eyes dimmed again. Asterisk 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 in the city. Bang. A building was torn into pieces, and the star picking in a high crown and silver armor flashed out from the shattered building. Zhekui stared at the meteor and sneered. Suddenly, a piece of fur on the red beast's body suddenly rotted and stank without any signs. It was like rotten meat that had been parked for many days. In the blink of an eye, it had corroded to the bone. Zeki immediately noticed something. At this time, many parts of its body showed signs of decay, and even wisps of green smoke rose. This is. In the heart of the giant beast, the man with red hair and red beard suddenly opened his eyes. How could this happen? My blood river cauldron was broken, and the broken tent blood plate was also destroyed. The Teichu tent has started to work again, and has locked me. Damn it. This god general puppet has been suppressed by me. Who else can break my blood river cauldron and destroy my broken tent blood plate? No, the Teichu tent has started to work again. I have to leave quickly. Otherwise, the heavenly ghost aura on my body will cause severe damage. In the cab of Xing, through the panoramic window, Jiuying Yunrang saw that the red beast in front of her suddenly collapsed, and the flesh and blood rotted and rolled down. She didn't know why. She didn't dare to get close, for fear that it was a trap. From the beginning to now, this red beast has shown something different from other giant beasts. It is cunning, insidious, and knows how to use people's hearts. It was like a vicious and cruel person, not a wild beast. Even those nightmare beasts with great intelligence did not behave like this. Therefore, seeing the flesh and blood of the red beast collapse, Jiuying Yunran was worried that it was a trap and did not approach rashly. So when a person emerged from a piece of flesh and blood under the belly of the red beast, Jiuying Yunran did not notice it. Zhekui's real body emerged from the flesh and blood and walked away quickly. He ran into a ruin and was about to find a place to hide. An ancient and mysterious symbol suddenly appeared on his chest. If Luo Yan was here, he would find that this symbol was very similar to the pattern similar to the Teisu pattern on his sword shadow. As soon as this mysterious symbol appeared, Zhekui screamed, and golden flames spewed out from his eyes and mouth. He endured the pain of his internal organs burning, used the curse technique, shouted loudly, and blood mist exploded all over his body. Suddenly, Zhekui was wrapped in a thick blood mist, causing the symbol on his chest to be stained with a lot of blood beads. Then, the blood beads on Zeki's body began to wriggle and turned into black spells. In an instant, the man's body seemed to be covered with evil scriptures, and his whole body was covered with blood black spells. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, Zeki's eyes were only two black holes, and green smoke was still coming out of them. His tongue was also burned, and he couldn't speak. But at this time, eyeballs appeared on the man's chest and his mouth opened behind his neck. This Teichu tent is really difficult to deal with. I have left my original beast form, and I only have a little smell on my body. The Teichu tent recognized me. Fortunately, I only changed into my original beast form. If I were a heavenly ghost, I would have been burned to ashes by the sun's gang fire the moment I was locked by the Teichu tent. Now I can only rely on this Hangaian curse to escape temporarily. But after being burned by the sun's gang fire, I need to rest for a long time. Teichu tent. Teichu tent. As long as the Lord does not get rid of this magic, my heavenly ghost clan will never see the light of day again. Alas. With a long sigh, Zeki left quickly and left the battlefield. Note, Hang, HNG, New Book of Tangbaiguan ZHI in any funeral, the 3rd rank and above are called Hang, the 5th rank and above are called Zhu, and from the 6th rank to the common people are called Si. Chapter 597 Isolated Island. The armored vehicle bumped, causing Luo Yan's body to shake. He was on his way back to the core headquarters. When he came here, there were 7 people including the driver. Now Luo Yan was the only one going back alone. Even the driver was transformed into a Kai beast when the blood river cauldron mutated. However, when Luo Yan entered the car, the Kai beast was already dead, turning into a pile of dry bones, and all the flesh and blood turned into a pool of clear water. Luo Yan cleaned up the dry bones and kept them, and placed them together with the bodies of Songhu and others. Luo Yan planned to send them back to the core headquarters together. However, although he wanted to collect the bodies of Songhu and others, some of them, such as Chen Heio, who were killed by the sword shadow, had turned into ashes and could not be recovered. Only those like Zhu Qian, who were burned to death by the power of breaking delusion, could still recover their bones. So there was not much Luo Yan could do, but he still did it. Gradually, the old city was left behind by the car. Luo Yan saw Zeki from a distance. The giant beast was already dead. The corpse was rotting, emitting visible wisps of green smoke. There were drones hovering there. Probably this area has been controlled. When passing a street, Luo Yan glanced from a distance and saw that there were recovery personnel wearing full sets of biochemical suits working. At this time, the communication device on the console flashed a signal light. Luo Yan picked it up, and Jiuying Yunrang's voice sounded in the communication device. Songhu, are you back? Luo Yan said in a deep voice. Sister Rong, it's me. Jiuying Yunrang paused for 2 seconds before saying, where are Songhu and the others? They died. Luo Yan then told Jiuying Yunrang everything that happened at that time, but made some changes. For example, it was Songhu and others who destroyed the incense burner, but they were backfired by the strange art and turned into monsters. This was said to cover up the fact that he destroyed the Blood River Cauldron, and secondly, to let Songhu and others make meritorious deeds, so that the pension and other family compensation in the future should be higher. After listening to Luo Yan's story, Jiuying Yunran was silent for a long time before saying, I see. Come back, we'll see you at the core. Okay. After ending the communication, Luo Yan put down the communicator. Looking outside the car again, Pingyao underground city was still alive after the disaster, and there were ruins everywhere. Recyclers were cleaning up the bodies to prevent the plague. Strangely, there was no corpse of the Kai beasts. It seemed that with the destruction of the Blood River Cauldron and the disappearance of the curse, the Kai beasts also died. Just like the driver in the armored vehicle, Heavenly Ghost. What exactly is a Heavenly Ghost? With this unanswered question in mind, Luo Yan returned to the Pingyao underground city core. He was soon taken to a room and met the Tijan grandfather and grandson. After the grandfather and grandson were brought back to the core, they were well fed and well drunk. Xiaohu had a nap and was now playing with himself. Seeing Luo Yan coming back, Tijan quickly pulled Luo Yan over and said, Xiao Yan, are you injured? Luo Yan shook his head and said, Uncle, the danger is over. The next few days should be quite chaotic. Let's stay in the city for a few days before leaving. Tijan laughed and said, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you. At this time, a sudden sound of footsteps like a torrential rain sounded outside the door. It seemed that many people were walking. Then a hurried voice outside the door asked, is the boy who went to the old city with my brother back? Don't lie to me. Someone saw him coming back. After a commotion outside, the door was suddenly kicked open, and a man with a crew cut and a blue chin rushed in, dragged by 2 core soldiers. This man looked a bit like Zhonghu. Behind him, there were 7 or 8 people, all with sullen faces and cold eyes. They rushed in suddenly, scaring Xiaohu. The little girl hurriedly ran to Tijan, hid behind the old man, and popped her head out to observe. Luo Yan stood up, stood in front of the grandfather and grandson, and looked at these people with some doubts. The man who looked a bit like Zhonghu pointed at Luo Yan and said, are you the student from Guangling? Luo what? Luo Yan. Luo Yan nodded. A soldier took the opportunity to say, this is Song Bao, Zhonghu's younger brother. Song Bao pushed the soldier aside and walked up. Why are you the only one back? Where is my brother? Then another person asked, where is my sister Jiuying? Where is she? What happened to Zhu Qian? I heard that she was burned into a pile of bones. These people talked at once and asked questions one after another, constantly throwing at Luo Yan. Luo Yan got a general idea. They were all people related to Zhonghu's team, or relatives like Song Bao, or friends of Zhu Qian. Everyone be quiet. Song Bao raised his hands and shouted, be quiet for a while, and listen to what he says. Then one by one, they looked at Luo Yan. Luo Yan said calmly, I have nothing to say. I have already told Commander Jiuying Yunrang everything I should say. She should inform you later. I just came back, and need to rest. Please leave. The room was suddenly filled with noise. Why don't you say it? Have you done something wrong? Yes. Why didn't Zhonghu and his men come back, but only you did? I heard that Zhonghu and his men died. Zhonghu and his men are the elites of our regiment. Why did they all die, but you are fine? Why did you come back, not them? Did you hide when the accident happened and didn't help? Coward. Coward. The crowd was surging. Those who lost their relatives and friends had nowhere to vent their anger, and now they vented it all on Luo Yan. Because he was still alive. Because he was back. But their relatives and friends would never come back, and even their bodies were gone. At this moment, Luo Yan was like an isolated island, surrounded by surging waves. The waves seemed to be drowning the island. Luo Yan stood there, without explaining or defending himself, but just clenched his fists. At this time, a figure blocked his way. Tijan. The one-armed old man roared, have you said enough? Which eye of yours saw that a little Yan didn't help? Why can't a little Yan come back? Ask your conscience. Does he deserve to die? Why should he die? He came from Guangling. He is just a student. In order to help solve the problems in our underground city, he is willing to take risks and go to the most dangerous place. What else do you want him to do? Does he have to die outside for you to be satisfied? You say he is a coward and a coward. I also said that you are all a bunch of trash. Song Bao and others were embarrassed by Tijan's roar. At this time, someone outside the door applauded. Hearing the applause, everyone looked out the door. Jiuying Yunrong walked in and said to Tijin, "Old man, you scolded well. My useless subordinates deserve to be scolded severely." Chapter 598 Cooking. Captain. Seeing Jiuying Yunrong coming, Song Bao and the others all lowered their heads, feeling a little guilty. Jiuying Yunrong walked in and laughed. "No, raise your heads. You two were quite energetic just now. Keep going." Song Bao gritted his teeth and said, "Captain, it's not that we are reckless, we are just anxious to know the situation of my brother's team. You said that classmate Luo is back, but several of my brother's team are missing. Zhu Kyan even turned into a pile of bones. He glanced at Jiuying Yunrong and didn't dare to say anything more. Jiuying Yunrong said for him, "So you came here to hold us accountable. You think it's unfair that Song Hu and the others didn't come back, but classmate Luo Yan did, right?" Song Bao lowered his head and said in a low voice, "I dare not." "You still say you dare not?" Jiuying Yunrong's eyes flashed with anger. "I heard everything outside. The old lady is right to scold you. You are all a bunch of trash, including me. Only with a useless leader like me can I bring out a bunch of trash like you who don't know right from wrong and only take out your anger on others." When Song Bao saw that she even scolded himself, his face suddenly became even more ashamed, and he was speechless. Jiuying Yunrong sighed and said, "I understand your feelings. I feel even worse when Song Hu and his friends died. But you can't vent your anger on Luo. He is not from Pingyao. And I asked him to help and take Song Hu and his friends to investigate the old city. Song Hu and his friends died, but think about it. Is this caused by Luo? No. It was caused by the giant beast. If you are angry, you should vent your anger on those beasts instead of hurting someone who helped us. Taking your anger out on others is a sign of incompetence. Do you understand?" Song Bao and others looked at each other, then whispered, "I understand." Jiuying Yunrong closed his eyes and gestured for them to leave. These people left silently. When they arrived at Song Bao, he hesitated, then bowed to Luo Yan. "Luo, I was reckless just now. Please forgive me." Luo Yan glanced at him and nodded. Song Bao was about to leave. When he walked to the door, he suddenly heard Luo Yan talking. "Captain Song Hu fought to the end. He is a hero." Song Bao's body trembled slightly, and then he said in a deep voice, "Thank you." Then he left. After the others left, Jiuying Yunrong opened his eyes little by little, his eyes a little tired. "I'm sorry to make you laugh. I hope you don't take it to heart. They lost their composure because they lost their loved ones. They are not that kind of people normally." Luo Yang nodded slightly. "I understand." Jiuying Yunrong threw a key to him. "You can stay at my place for the time being. Taowen is fortunately not destroyed. I will go back after I finish the things at hand. I asked someone to prepare a car for you." Zhang. Jiuying Yunrong called a soldier and asked him to take Luo Yan and others away. Driving the car, Luo Yang brought Tijin and his grandson to Taowen. This area was fortunately not affected by the war, but because of the war in the city, now there are many underground city residents because of the complete facilities. So when the car drove to the vicinity, it couldn't go any further. There were too many people and there were not enough buildings to accommodate them. There was no other way, so the temporary tents had to be set up on the street. Looking around, the road was full of tents of all sizes. Luo Yan and the other two got off the car and came to Taowen. Jiuying Yunrong's small courtyard with a separate door and gate would normally be requisitioned, but because she was the head of the corps, the courtyard was preserved. When Luo Yan arrived, he found two corps soldiers standing in front of the courtyard, and the front of the door was crowded with refugees. If there were no corps soldiers, the courtyard would have been occupied long ago. Jiuying Yunrong had already greeted them, and Luo Yan and the other two walked into the courtyard amidst envious gazes. The door was closed, and the courtyard was a small world. Xiaohe saw a swing, and ran over happily, and swung by herself. Tijin followed Luo Yan into the house and sighed. "It's a good thing that you, Xiao Yan, are here this time, otherwise, I'm afraid that the two of us, the grandfather and grandson, would not even have a place to stay." Luo Yan smiled and said, "I'm going to take a shower." In this way, the three of them stayed in Taowen. Jiuying Yunrong didn't come back until the next morning. The woman came home with messy hair and tired eyes, and it looked like she hadn't slept last night. She took a shower first, then put on a vest and shorts, opened the refrigerator, and took out a bottle of beer. After gulping it down, she went back to her room to sleep. At noon, Luo Yan opened the refrigerator, took out the food inside, and prepared to make lunch. He defrosted a pig's stomach, washed it, threw it on the chopping board, then picked up the kitchen knife and started chopping. After a while, he took a piece of chicken gizzard, scraped off the thick membrane with a knife, and then cut fine knife marks on it. Taejin came out wearing a coat and laughed. "It's been several years since I saw you cook, Jiuying." Luo Yan smiled. He is a child from a single parent family and learned to share housework early. Before he went to Huacheng to study, Luo Yan took care of all the meals at home. His mother was busy making money. She worked during the day and set up a small stall outside the building at night. She was too busy to cook. Luo Yan was a chef when he was 12 years old. At that time, he was still short and could not even stand as high as the stove. So he would always move a stool and stand on tiptoe. He could not do without that stool when cutting vegetables or cooking. Taejin still remembers that every time he passed Luo Yan's house, he could always see a small figure standing busy by the kitchen window. "What are you doing?" Taejin came over and asked. "A home-cooked dish," Luo Yan said as he put the chicken gizzards into the pot. First heated it with a high fire, and then put the cut pork belly in. Then he threw the prepared green onions, ginger, garlic and other condiments into the pot. Sizzle. White smoke came out of the pot and the fragrance came out. Luo Yan stir-fried it for a while, and the fragrance was so strong that Taejin swallowed his saliva. At this time, the door of the bedroom suddenly opened, and Jiuying yawned and walked out. "Who is it? You are cooking such a delicious dish. Can't you let me sleep?" A moment later, the table was full of food. Jiuying's eyelashes were curved with laughter. "A chopstick here, a spoon there. Luo, I didn't expect you to cook this dish so well. Why don't you not go back? Follow Sister Ang in the future. Sister Ang will introduce you to a sweet girl. Look at your cooking skills. It's such a waste to be a mecha master. Why don't you open a restaurant? This chicken gizzard is delicious. It's much better than what I cook." Crunch. Jiuying's mouth was full of greasy food. After eating, he took a sip of ice-cold beer inside. Refreshing. Chapter 599. The Transformation of the World. After lunch, Luo Yan washed the dishes, while Jiuying helped him. Jiuying chatted with Taejin for a while, then drank beer and said, "Luo, how did you know the characteristics of that giant beast yesterday? That thing can't even detect the spectrum signal of the giant beast radar. I'm afraid there is no corresponding information in the archives of the strategic palace." Luo Yan kept moving. Wearing an apron, he cleaned a basin neatly and handed it to Jiuying to dry. "My divine treasure can dig out some information about the giant beast. But even so, I only dug out two characteristics of the giant beast. Sister Ang, that thing is not simple. I have faced the overlord giant beast, but I was afraid of the giant beast yesterday." Jiuying did not laugh at Luo Yan because he was afraid. Instead, he nodded. "That thing is definitely not a simple one. A friend of mine who studies Giksu in the strategic palace mentioned that she suspects that there are other levels of behemoths above the nightmare level behemoths. I suspect that the one from yesterday is one of them." Luo Yan turned around. "Could your friend be Dr. Jiuying?" Luo Yan's mind flashed with the image of the beautiful doctor wearing a cheongsam and glasses with a cold look. Jiuying raised her eyebrows. "Do you know each other?" "Not really. I just attended a class of Dr. Jiuying." Luo Yan turned around and continued to wash the dishes. Jiuying put down his beer. "Has she been to Guangling?" Then, without waiting for Luo Yan to answer, he continued, "Yesterday, the recovery team found that nothing could be recovered from the giant beast. No fur, no core, nothing. Even the bones, this morning, have all been calcified and turned into a pile of powder. They had extracted some liquid from the decomposition of the giant beast before, but today, those things have degraded into clear water, and not a single cell can be extracted." Luo Yan was surprised and said, "How could this happen?" Jiuying shrugged. "Who knows? In fact, I felt strange yesterday. Originally we were at a disadvantage, and suddenly the giant beast rotted and decomposed by itself. Otherwise, I might be lying in the morgue now. Now that the giant beast has decomposed by itself, there is not a single hair left. I wonder if it is because that thing is not the original body? Luo Yan remembered that in the information he saw yesterday, there was a beast form information about ZHEKUI. At that time, he was wondering if that meant that ZHEKUI had other forms. Now listening to Jiuying Yunrang's words, he was slightly moved. But he had no evidence or clues, so he didn't answer. The dishes were washed. Jiuying Yunrang had finished her beer. She slapped the table, stood up and said, "Come with me." The two came to the training room behind Jiuying Yunrang's yard. Jiuying Yunrang tied her hair with a hair tie. "You helped me a lot. I'm poor and have nothing to repay you. After thinking about it, I can only teach you something. Your foundation of martial arts was laid by Feng He. Feng He does things in a set way. He laid this foundation for you. He must have his own ideas later. I won't get involved. As for combat skills, I do have some, and I also have one or two unique skills. But my things are different from those of D. They need to be combined with specific martial arts to exert their power. I can teach you a kind of footwork. I exchanged it from the strategic palace. It is also considered to be a relatively superior footwork. It's called Daozuan Crossing Yi. It can help you avoid damage and also confuse the enemy. Next, Jiuying Yunrang carefully explained the practice method of Daozuan Crossing Yi and practiced it several times personally. The key points of the footwork of Daozuan Crossing Yi are turn and shift. Turn means to transfer part of the damage and transfer part of the opponent's attack force to reduce the injury. Shift is naturally to move. In addition to moving quickly like dragonfly touching water, to avoid attacks in advance. Daozuan Crossing Yi can also leave a trail of after images in the field, to confuse the enemy's vision. Take Jiuying Yunrang as an example. She can leave 18 after images in an instant. Luo Yan, who practiced for an afternoon, can only barely leave 3. Although it is not a unique skill, not a secret method, and not a combat skill. However, the footwork of Daozuan Crossing Yi has many uses. It can transfer damage and confuse the enemy. Compared with dragonfly touching water, it is indeed much better. After seeing that Luo Yan basically mastered it, Jiuying Yunrang nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. It took only one afternoon to basically master it. Although it would be easier to practice if someone gave me some tips. But it only took one afternoon to basically master the key points and difficulties. In addition to having excellent talent, I also have good eyesight. Otherwise, if I only had talent, I wouldn't be able to learn so quickly. Luo Yan wiped the sweat off his face. His spirit has the characteristic of strong memory. So after Jiuying Yunrang practiced it several times, Luo Yan had basically memorized the key points. This characteristic of strong memory really helped Luo Yan a lot, giving him a great advantage in learning various knowledge and other things. Beep, beep. The phone rang. After Jiuying Yunrang answered a call, he left the courtyard after saying I have something to do and have to go back to the core. Pingyao Mecha Core. As soon as Jiuying Yunrang arrived, Chief of Staff Zhu Wei came up with a tablet computer. Captain, support from Guangling has arrived. They have come in a squad and have begun to assist us in expelling the giant beasts on the surface. Moreover, they have also sent a batch of supplies to solve our urgent needs. Zhu Wei looked at the captain and then said hesitantly, in addition, the city lord of Guangling is in your office. Jiuying Yunrang paused. Then he said, okay, I got it. Old Zhu, go and do your thing. Zhu Wei nodded and left. When she arrived at the office, Jiuying Yunrang did not go in immediately. She smoked a cigarette irritably. Halfway through the cigarette, she put it out and threw it into the trash can. It's just to meet someone. What am I afraid of? I don't owe him anything. Then she gritted her teeth, went to the front of the office, and pushed the door open with force. As soon as the door opened, she saw a figure standing by the window, wearing a long coat, with a little silver hair, thick eyebrows and a high nose. The lines are cold. From a distance, it looks like a sword out of its sheath. Hard, sharp, and cold. But when he turned around, his hard eyebrows gradually melted, and his cold face became a little warmer. Yunrong, are you okay? Are you hurt? Jiuying Yunrong closed the door, his brows covered with frost, and he snorted, don't give me that. Guangling is not far from here. If you really care about me so much, why haven't you said a word for so many years? Even a litter, you need a child, to deliver it for you. Chapter 600, Revenge for a Private Revenge. He dared to fight against the overlord level beasts, and did not frown when facing strong enemies. But now, listening to Jiuying Yunrong's few words, Xing stretched out his hand, and scratched his head. After a moment, he said, back then, when I came out of the Gixu training camp, I swore, in my lifetime, I will do my best to drive away the beasts. So, I dare not approach you. I'm afraid of delaying you. Jiuying Yunrong sneered, then why are you running here now? Xing raised his head, and looked at the woman who complained about him and said, I'm afraid that, if I don't come this time, I will never see you again. The wind blew in through the window. A few strands of hair passed by Jiuying Yunrong's eyes. She originally thought that this man didn't care about her. Now she knows. He didn't dare to get close, because he cared too much. Xing. Huh. You might as well be stupid to death. During dinner, Xiaohui looked at the uncle brought back by Aunt Jiuying in front of her with some doubts. This uncle has been very nervous since he entered the door. He dared not say much. He dared not look around. He kept pursing his lips and tried to put on a stern look. But that look looked very similar to brother Xiaoyan. So Xiaohui gently pulled Taijun's sleeve. Grandpa, is that brother Xiaoyan's father? Luoyan's mouth twitched slightly, and he put a piece of pork belly in Xiaohui's bowl, and stuffed this little mouth. Eat. Luo's food is good, 100 times better than you can only cook instant noodles and eggs. Jiuying Yunrong, who changed into casual clothes, scooped a spoonful of mapo tofu, and put it in Xing's bowl. Xing tasted it and said stiffly, not bad. Luoyan looked at Xing and Jiuying Yunrong, wondering what happened between the two of them in private. However, Jiuying Yunrong brought Xing back, so their relationship should not be bad. It's just that Captain D is so nervous. It was the first time Luoyan saw him so nervous, as if facing a great enemy. Following the man who fought the overlord beast in the misty canyon, they were like two different people. While Jiuying Yunrong and Xing were both there, Luoyan said, Sister Rong, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll return the key to you. Jiuying Yunrong was actually a little disappointed. Hey, you're leaving tomorrow? Are you really not staying with me? Then it seems that I have to go back to the core canteen to eat. Xing returned to normal at this time and nodded. It's better to go back early. I heard from Feng He that they will organize first year students to study in the forbidden area in a while, and you should be needed to participate in the guard work. Luoyan nodded. Jiuying Yunrong put down his bowl and chopsticks and said, then I'll have someone prepare some things for you on the road. Thank you, Sister Rong. Why are you being polite to your sister? Looking at the high-spirited Jiuying Yunrong, Luoyan couldn't help but glance at Xing again, always feeling that the two of them must have a story this afternoon. Thinking of this, Luoyan raised the corner of his mouth. Xing glared at him. I heard that Yunrong passed on her Daozu and crossing Yi to you. Have you learned it? Luoyan nodded. I barely learned it. What does reluctantly mean? It means I'm not proficient in it. Luo, go practice it after dinner. While Yunrong is here, ask her if you have any questions. Xing said sternly. Luoyan replied I know, and then he ate his meal in silence. He always felt that Xing was a bit of a personal revenge. After practicing Daozu and crossing Yi for a whole night, there was one more after image that appeared in an instant. Luoyan then took a shower and went to bed. The next day, he drove an off-road vehicle that Jiuying Yunrong found for him and said goodbye to Tijun and his grandson. With the pass issued by Jiuying Yunrong, Luoyan and his two companions passed through Pingyao City without any hindrance. On the surface, with the participation of the Guangling Corps, all the giant beasts had been driven away yesterday. Now the recycling team is working overtime to recycle materials from the giant beasts. Luoyan watched all this from afar, then stepped on the accelerator and the off-road vehicle sped away. The distance between Guangling and Pingyao is not far, but not close either. Dezeng was able to arrive so quickly because he took the shortest road, but that road was not peaceful. Only the army marched could pass safely. Luo Yan and his two companions only had one car, so they naturally did not want to take risks. So they took a little more time to go around. That day they arrived at a surface camp, paid some camp taxes, and stayed there for the night. This camp is of medium size, located underground, connecting a subway station and the adjacent underground shopping mall, and is home to about 100 people. Luo Yan and his companions are outsiders, and are not qualified to enter the hinterland of the camp, so they can only stay in that subway station. This place is for some passing outsiders to stay overnight, and the residents of the camp live in the underground shopping mall. When Luo Yan and his two companions came in, they saw that there were more than 10 tents set up here, all of which were passing outsiders. Some were cooking, while others had guns scattered all over the ground. Some were disheveled, while others were quite clean. These outsiders dared to walk on the surface, so they were naturally not ordinary characters. When Luo Yan and the other two came in, they frequently saluted. Luo Yan and the other three were a strange combination. Luo Yan was a young man in his early 20s, Tijun was a 50-year-old man with a broken arm, and Xiaohua was a child who knew nothing about the world. They looked like a family, and although the three were wearing cloaks, anyone with a little experience could tell that they were surface residents, because the three of them all had a clean aura. So when Luo Yan was setting up the tent, a man came over to check on him, and said with a smile, "Where are you from, little brother?" Luo Yan glanced at him and said, "Get lost." The man's face changed, and he was about to explode, but he was frightened by Luo Yan's fiery, but cold red eyes, and finally he turned around, and left without saying a word. After settling Tijun and his grandson to sleep, Luo Yan sat cross-legged in the tent. He began to practice. Because it was night, practicing the Yan Yang Sutra was not very effective. So Luo Yan started practicing the Huazu Sutra. His Huazu Sutra had been stuck at the first level for some time, thinking that the battle between Black Witch and Huangquan was imminent. Luo Yan planned to practice the Huazu Sutra to the second level, so that he would have more confidence in the fight. While Luo Yan was practicing the Huazu Sutra, his Yuan Shen Phantom was also practicing. Moreover, it seemed that under the influence of the Huazu Sutra, a faint blood-colored aura was also emanating from the Yuan Shen Phantom. Halfway through the practice, Luo Yan suddenly felt something. The huge amount of blood and energy that was swallowed by the dragon blood essence from the blood river cauldron a few days ago was now separated under the influence of the Huazu essence, and operated together with the exercises. This blood and energy was like a tonic for the Huazu Sutra, which made Luo Yan's practice progress by leaps and bounds. But in a moment, Luo Yan felt that his blood and energy were full, and he had reached the bottleneck of breakthrough. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 601 Strange Fish. Luo Yan was not as demanding about the Blood Transformation Sutra as he was about the Yan Yang Sutra, nor did he deliberately pursue the foundation. Unlike the Yan Yang Sutra, even if there are signs of breakthroughs, it is necessary to lay a solid foundation before breaking through. This is because he knows that it is impossible to practice two methods at the same time, and one must focus on one. In addition to the time cost, there is another reason, which is the relationship between cultivation resources. The Yuan Enhancer is expensive, and Luo Yan invested all the cultivation resources that can be exchanged into the Yan Yang Sutra, so he must make every realm of this method solid and solid. As for the Blood Transformation Sutra, he does not have so many cultivation resources to squander, so he will let it go. But now, he found that the blood and ki absorbed from the blood river cauldron can actually be used to practice the Blood Transformation Sutra, so he is no longer polite. Although his blood and essence are full now, and he has a sense of breakthrough, he is not in a hurry to break through. At present, according to the records in the Blood Transformation Sutra, he continues to transfer the blood and ki absorbed from the blood river cauldron, and transform it with the method. The blood transformation sutra naturally has the word blood transformation, and the key lies in these two words. Originally, the blood transformation sutra had to reach the third level, to absorb the blood and ki of the enemy, and then store this part of the blood and ki for cultivation, or refine it into blood essence. But now there is a blood and ki of the blood river cauldron, and the blood and ki that the lizard dragon phantom swallowed in the past can be said to be huge, which is quite inexhaustible. Luo Yan was not polite to it, and continuously put this blood and ki into cultivation, using them to make the foundation of his blood transformation sutra more solid. At this time, Luo Yan was concentrating on cultivation, so he didn't know that the Yuanshan phantom also absorbed the blood and ki in his body and refined it into a red rope-like thing, which was wrapped around his left hand. The red rope looked like a living thing, constantly spinning on its own and repeating the process of expansion and contraction. While Luo Yan was practicing, the man who was driven away by him before returned to a tent. The tent was full of people. Seeing him coming in, a scarred man asked, "How is it, Li Si? Have you figured out the background of those 3 people?" The man called Li Si shook his head and said, "That kid must be no ordinary person. His eyes are scary. I, Li Si, have seen storms before, but I was frightened by his glare." A fat man laughed and said, "Come on, Li Si, you are so brave. Didn't you run away without even pulling up your pants last time, when you were scared by a woman?" A low laugh sounded in the tent. Li Si glared at the fat man fiercely, and simply sat down, and didn't say anything. The scarred man said, "Forget it. If they are not easy to provoke, don't provoke them. From the looks of them, they should just be passing by. That's fine. As long as it doesn't hinder us from catching that strange fish tomorrow." A man with a goatee sighed in the tent. "A miraculous thing falls from the sky, and a virtuous person will possess it. That miraculous fish swims through streams and crosses rivers. Wherever it passes, the water of streams and rivers becomes medicinal soup, and all fish and animals that have been soaked and drunk become strong. If we can catch that miraculous fish, we will definitely be able to sell it for a good price." The fat man who had squeezed Li Si before laughed and said, "Let's follow it all the way, dig a canal nearby to divert water, and hope to lead it to that dead pool. As soon as it goes in and triggers the trap we buried in advance, it will be difficult to fly away." The scarred man nodded and said, "It's getting late, brothers. Go to bed early. We still have a lot of work to do tomorrow." Immediately, the people in the tent scattered like birds and beasts. After leaving the tent, Li Si glanced at the tent where Luo Yan was and saw a faint red light inside, as if a ball of blood was surging. He frowned and whispered, "I told you, that kid is not simple, but you still don't believe me. Look at this scene. I wonder what kind of domineering technique he is practicing. It's better not to provoke such a person." Several hours passed in the blink of an eye. Luo Yan felt that his foundation was already solid, so he broke through the invisible barrier in one go. Suddenly, the blood and ki in his body rushed through the hundreds of acupoints in his limbs, making Luo Yan feel bloated. There was even a breath that wanted to spray out through his mouth and nose. Luo Yan hurriedly held his breath and clenched his teeth, trying not to let the breath out of his body. In the end, it could only rush straight to the Shanman, causing his Nuan acupoint between his eyebrows to tremble constantly. After a while, Luo Yan seemed to have a hum sound in his mind. Then, a large amount of blood and ki swirled and condensed, gathering in his eyebrows, which seemed to have turned into a black hole. The blood and ki that could burst his body were absorbed by him, and then faintly expanded and contracted at his eyebrows. At this time, a little red light, like a dot of cinnabar, faintly shone from Luo Yan's skin between his eyebrows. This was a sign that the blood transformation sutra had been cultivated to the second level. When it was mastered, this little red light would even turn into a mark. At the third level, this blood mark could be used to store various blood essences. At the same time, when Luo Yan broke through to the second level, the circles of red ropes on the left hand of the Yuanshan phantom also expanded and turned into a small vermilion snake with a thickness of 2 fingers. The small snake wrapped around the left hand of the Yuanshan phantom, spitting out its snake tongue, and was vivid. Wrapped around the arms and waist of the Yuanshan phantom, the green dragon swam over like a streamer and rubbed gently with the red snake, looking even intimate. As Luo Yan's eyes opened little by little, the Yuanshan Phantom and the green dragon and red snake slowly disappeared. Only then did Luo Yan let out a long breath. The first and second levels of the blood transformation sutra are both fueled by one's own blood and ki, and can burst out the power of blood and ki when needed, which is similar to the secret method, KO and wheel. But it can complement the secret method, which means that, if Luo Yan runs the blood transformation sutra, and then uses the secret method KO and wheel, the explosive power will exceed the combination of the Yan Yang sutra and the KO and wheel. Luo Yan stood up, and walked out of the tent. He had just broken through, and was full of energy. He didn't feel sleepy at all. This time, the blood and ki swallowed from the blood river cauldron could actually be used to practice the blood transformation sutra, which he had never thought of before. Now that he has that blood and ki, the speed and quality of practicing the blood transformation sutra will not be worse than the Yan Yang sutra using the Yuan enhancer. It may even have some advantages. In addition, Luo Yan can feel that the dragon blood essence has fallen into a deep sleep like before. When it wakes up, his dragon transformation posture may have new changes. Swallowing everything for its own use, Luo Yan said softly, "How domineering. The overlord beast in the misty canyon must have obtained the red fruit, which is why it suddenly began to evolve. The dragon blood essence only drank some of the leftovers, but it has undergone such a big change. What would happen if it ate the whole red fruit?" Chapter 602, Dark Fish. Ren Water. The next morning, Luo Yan and his two companions ate some dry food and packed up to leave the camp. While packing, Luo Yan saw that the outsiders like them also packed up their tents and prepared their guns, as if they were also preparing to go out. Those people looked at Luo Yan, said nothing, and hurried away. Luo Yan didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he took Tijin and his grandson and took the car and left. The off-road vehicle was driving on the road. The weather was clear and the fragrance of flowers filled the fields. From time to time, a few cicadae jumped out from the roadside, which made Xiaohua scream with excitement. Perhaps it had been a long time since he saw his granddaughter so happy, and Tijin's old face was full of smiles. But not long after leaving the camp, the sky suddenly darkened. Luo Yan's heart jumped, and he looked up at the sky. The sky was originally clear, but suddenly a black crack appeared from nowhere, as if it was going to tear the sky apart, and dragons swam, and snakes moved across the sky. Yambu space. Luo Yan tightened his grip on the steering wheel, and immediately turned the steering wheel sharply. The off-road vehicle left the road and headed straight for the nearby forest. He didn't care where the branch of the Yama above his head stretched. In short, don't stay under the Yambu space. This is the most basic common sense. Tijin is a survivor of the giant beast disaster that day, and naturally knows the Yambu space. On the day of the giant beast disaster, the branches of the Yama in the sky were dense, covering the sky and the sun, and the roots were intertwined. That was much more serious than the current situation. But when he suddenly saw the Yambu space appear, Tijin's heart tightened, and he hurriedly hugged Xiaohua to avoid any accidents. The off-road vehicle given by Jiuying Yunrang has a high chassis, thick tires, a strong frame, and good shockproof. Even if you drive into the forest, it's like walking on flat ground. Soon, there was a rumble on the road, and the Yambu space was fully opened. The thin branches now turned into a dark abyss. Something fell from the abyss in the sky, and when it left the Yambu space, it expanded from 2 dimensions as thin as a shadow to 3 dimensions. When the thing fell to the ground, a giant beast raised its head and roared. At this time, Luo Yan and others had already gone deep into the forest. In the eyes of the giant beast, they were like ants crawling into the grass, and could no longer be seen. The off-road vehicle stopped beside a stream. Luo Yan opened the Wuwang blazing eyes, and said after observing for a while, "It seems that we have to take a detour. The giant beast will not leave the road for a while." He casually looked around, and looked for a way. Suddenly, he saw a fish-shaped grey light jumping in a pool in the northwest. As the fish-shaped grey light jumped, the nature of the water gradually changed. In the Wuwang blazing eyes, Luo Yan saw a lot of information. Rainwater, degraded, is being transformed. The transformation progress is 7%, 8%, 9%. Quote, rainwater. Innate rainwater is spiritual root water, the essence of the sea, the essence of heaven and earth, and it takes millions of years to condense a drop of divine water. The effect of degraded rainwater is not even 1/1000th of that of innate rainwater. It can only strengthen the muscles and bones of aquatic organisms and some animals, break the life framework, and it is highly poisonous if people drink it. Luo Yan was stunned. Rainwater? What kind of fish is that can actually transform the water in the pond into rainwater? Although this degraded rainwater can only strengthen the muscles and bones of aquatic organisms and some animals, it is highly poisonous if people drink it. But obviously, ordinary creatures cannot do this. Thinking of this, Luo Yan said in a deep voice, "Uncle, you stay here." He put an assault rifle and several fragmentation grenades next to Tijin. "I'll go over to the pond and take a look. I'll be back soon. If there's anything, just honk the horn." After explaining, Luo Yan came to the pond alone. He used the Ki and cautiously restrained his breath and did not approach the pond rashly, hiding behind a bluestone on the shore. Looking into the pond again, he saw a black fish jumping happily on the water surface. The thing looked like a loach, but it was covered with scales and had a light golden dorsal fin. Luo Yan used the Wuang Zuan to look at it, and the corresponding information appeared above the strange fish. Mingyu, there is a fish in the North Ming. Its name is Kun. Kun Peng is a strange beast, and it does not easily face life and death. Before Kun is seriously injured and about to die, it can condense and discharge its essence, and finally turn into a Mingyu. Mingyu is the juvenile form of Kun, carrying most of Kun's life essence. It needs to go to the river and into the sea before it can grow into a Kun again. If there is a chance, it can be reborn as Peng, and from then on it will roam between heaven and earth without restraint. After Luo Yan looked at it, his pupils slightly dilated. This is actually the juvenile form of Kun. On that day, in the Battle of Changping, the Sky Overlord Kun had been killed. But from the information displayed on this Mingyu now, although Kun was dead at that time, it condensed and discharged most of its life essence. Thus, it lived a second life. Now this Mingyu needs to go to the river and into the sea to grow into a Kun again. But for some reason, it seems to be trapped in this pool now. Luo Yan used the Wuang burning eyes to sweep it, and found that this was a dead pond. The entrance was blocked by rocks, leaving the Mingyu with nowhere to go. Moreover, this Mingyu can transform the pool water into rainwater. If left alone, I don't know how many aquatic creatures or animals will mutate. Moreover, if it is allowed to enter the sea, it will breed another Kun. Thinking of how many people sacrificed to eliminate the Sky Overlord at that time. With this thought, Luo Yan made a prompt decision and made up his mind to kill the Mingyu. He habitually operated the Yanayang Sutra, and a red gold sun ray suddenly appeared around him. The fish in the pond immediately sensed something and jumped even harder, making the water extremely turbid, trying to disturb Luo Yan's sight. But for Luo Yan, who possessed the Wuang burning eyes, this was easier said than done. As the degraded rainwater was highly toxic, Luo Yan did not dare to approach. After the splitting star was unsheathed, he slashed out a stream of red gold sword energy. The fish was smart, and as soon as the splitting star was unsheathed, it plunged into the water. As a result, the sword energy tore the surface of the water and broke the water droplets, but it did not even tear off a single scale of it. Luo Yan frowned and wanted to go forward and kill the fish. But at this moment, someone shouted, "Stop! What do you want to do to our strange fish, kid?" A voice came. Near the pond, 7 or 8 people suddenly emerged from the surrounding mountains and forests. The leader had an ugly scar on his face and pointed an assault rifle at Luo Yan. One of them, Luo Yan recognized, was the one who wanted to test him in the camp last night. Li Si was also stunned when he saw Luo Yan. This morning, they left the camp and followed the traces left by the strange fish yesterday. They found that the strange fish was indeed fooled and entered the canal they dug and came to this stagnant pool. They followed it, not wanting to see Luo Yan, and it seemed that they also had their eyes on the strange fish. Chapter 603, Happy and Proud. As soon as Li Si saw Luo Yan, he backed off. However, he was embarrassed to run alone. because of his companions. But he did not move forward and fell behind, planning to run away if something went wrong. Luo Yan turned around, and Splitting Star returned to his cloak, looking around with cold red eyes. The scarred man also recognized Luo Yan at this time. "Is it you? The stranger from last night?" Although he recognized the fish, he still said firmly, "Boy, we spent a lot of effort to lure the fish in the pond into this stagnant pond. We are about to close the net. It's inappropriate for you to interfere at this time, isn't it?" Luo Yan said coldly, "Do you know what kind of fish it is? It's not a fish at all. It's a juvenile giant beast. If it enters the river or the sea, it will cause disaster to the people. It must be killed now." Scarface was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "You are good boy. In order to monopolize a strange fish, you can even say such a trick to deceive children. Boy, I don't want to cause trouble. Go away. Don't be ungrateful." He said this, but the man thought in his heart, when he turns around and is not paying attention, I will kill him ruthlessly. The matter of the strange fish must not be leaked. Boy, don't complain. If you want to blame someone, blame your bad luck. Luo Yan glanced at Scarface calmly, then quietly formed a seal in his cloak, and first erected several invisible barriers nearby. Then a faint red light surged from his body. This was the number 27 mystic technique golden armor. Since these people wanted to kill him, Luo Yan would certainly not be polite to them. If it weren't for the dragon blood essence sleeping, he could even use the amber light to quietly inject these people with the death energy and disaster light. Seeing the red light surging from Luo Yan's body, Scarface reacted quickly and immediately shouted, "Kill this kid." While speaking, he had already taken out a fragmentation grenade, pulled off the pull ring, and threw it over. At the same time, the shadow under his feet suddenly squirmed, and a sword shadow shot up and passed across Scarface's neck. When the grenade was thrown, Luo Yan's cloak had already been raised, and a red gold sword energy shot out from the separated cloak. The scene was immediately filled with the sound of tearing the air and dazzling flames. The grenade exploded, and fragments flew everywhere, but they were all blocked by the empty wall. As for Scarface, after he threw the grenade, he felt a heat on his neck, and then he couldn't breathe. He reached out and pressed his neck, and felt his palm was warm. When he took it away, he saw that his palm was full of blood. He wanted to ask for help, but everyone else's attention was on Luo Yan. Everyone rushed to Luo Yan. The roar of the rifle and the roar of the grenade intertwined, and the water in the pool was surging. Who cared about Scarface? When the gunshots rang out, Lee Si ran back without saying a word, holding his head, and didn't dare to participate in the battle at all. He ran away without a trace in a blink of an eye. As the target of everyone's concentrated fire, the 2 seconds before the empty wall was shattered were enough for Luo Yan to flash and flee. But in the eyes of others, Luo Yan was still standing there stupidly, torn into pieces by everyone's firepower in the shattered empty wall. TSK. That guy Lee Si, he said that this guy's not easy to mess with. In my opinion, he is just a paper tiger. Brother, don't you think so? The fat man who bullied Lee Si last night took his finger off the trigger and looked at the scarred face. He saw that his leader was already lying in a pool of blood. His neck was cut open at some point, and his mouth was wide open. He was suffocated to death. He was stunned for a moment, and then he saw a figure flashing in the corner of his eyes, followed by a sky full of stars. At the moment of falling, the fat man saw Luo Yan appear in front of him. A thought came to his mind. How come this man is not dead? Seeing the fat man's body full of holes pierced by the splitting star, Luo Yan's face was neither sad nor happy. The figure flashed, and several after images suddenly appeared in the field, making it difficult for the group to distinguish the real from the fake, and they immediately fired randomly. In this way, it is inevitable that his companions will be injured by mistake. Luo Yan, who had confused the enemy's sight with his footwork Daozu and crossing Yi, easily picked up the leaks, first dealt with those who were accidentally injured by his companions, and then turned back to kill the remaining fish that escaped. In a blink of an eye, except for Lee Si who took the opportunity to escape at the beginning, the group of people who wanted to seize the fish were killed. Luo Yan then returned to the dead pool and swept it with Wu Wang Zhu Yan, but saw that the rocks that blocked the dead pool before were blown up in the previous battle. The fish was also missing, and it must have taken the opportunity to escape when the rocks were blown up. Luo Yang couldn't help but snorted, looking at the bodies of Scarface and others. His eyes flashed with anger. If these people hadn't made trouble, the fish would have died long ago. Now I don't know where it is swimming to. One day, it will enter the river and the sea, and it will be a dominant beast again. But all the troublemakers were dead, and Luo Yan didn't like to whip the corpses, so he had to give up. After looting the things on these people, he left. Back outside the SUV, Tijun was relieved to see him back. Xiao Yan, what happened? Just now he heard gunshots and explosions from the pond, and was worried. Now that he saw Luo Yan coming back, the old man was relieved. It's a small matter. Luo Yan didn't intend to explain it in too much detail. Then he picked up his phone and called Dizeng to tell him about the dark fish. When Dizeng heard that the Kun that day actually had such a method, he couldn't help but gasp. Then he said, leave it to me. At this point, Luo Yan had nothing to do. He hung up the phone and drove away. A few days later, finally arrived at the underground city of Guangling. As soon as he came back, Luo Yang called Yang Lixi out. He asked him to find a place for Tijun and his grandson to stay. Young Master Yang took action and the matter was quickly settled. Yang Lixi settled Tijun's family in the Qingdian Road area. Most of the apartments here are staff apartments. They are not as complicated as the old city, but they are not high-end residential areas. It is not strange for Tijun and his grandson to settle here. Yang Lixi was very considerate and found a job as a security guard for Tijun. For him, it was a matter that could be done by making a phone call, but it solved the problem of food and clothing for the old man. The old man was very grateful to this young man. This matter was temporarily settled. Luo Yan was going to go back to the college, but Yang Lixi insisted on preparing a table of wine and food for him. He just helped him, so Luo Yan didn't want to spoil his fun and agreed. When driving to the hotel, Luo Yan saw that he was in high spirits and his eyebrows were full of joy. He couldn't help asking, what good things have happened recently? Yang Lixi laughed dryly and said in a low voice, old Luo, brother, I'm here. Not long ago, classmate Liu promised me to try to date me. Luo Yan raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. Yang Lixi laughed. This is called sincerity can move mountains and stones. Student Liu was finally moved by my sincerity. Chapter 604 Divine Guard Elite. Hearing Yang Lixi say that Liu Ruohan was touched by his sincerity, Luo Yang couldn't help but look at this guy surnamed Yang a few more times. Yang Lixi felt uncomfortable when he looked at him. What does your look mean? Old Luo, let me tell you, I'm not bragging this time. Student Liu is really touched by my sincerity, don't look unbelieving. Seeing his depressed look, Luo Yan thought for a long time, and finally uttered 3 words from his mouth. Congratulations. Yang Lixi smiled so hard that his face seemed to bloom. This is my good brother. Do you remember what gift I gave Liu Ruohan last time? Luo Yan certainly remembered, a cake that was so ugly that people couldn't bear to look at it directly. It looked terrible and tasted average. The only special thing was that it was said that Yang Lixi made it himself. At that time, Luo Yan felt that with this guy's status and position, he dared to take out such a thing in front of so many people, which was also a great courage. Yang Lixi said proudly, it was that cake that captured my goddess heart. She later told me that it was the ugliest cake she had ever seen, but she admired my unpretentiousness and my honesty, and my efforts over the years finally moved her. Haha, we went shopping together yesterday, and I held her hand. Her hand, tut, it's so tender. As he was talking, Yang Lixi saw that Luo Yan didn't seem to care much, so he stopped talking tactfully. Arriving at the hotel, Yang Lixi had already prepared a table of wine and food. After the two of them sat at the table, Yang Lixi continued. Our cultivation garden has opened. I transferred Zhang Yi there first and recruited a group of people in Qingyang. For now, it's barely enough, but there is still a shortage of manpower, so I recruited another group. After returning to Guangling, I'll ask them to come over the day after tomorrow. Old Luo, please help me take a look. Luo Yan nodded. Since it was related to his income, he didn't refuse. Yang Lixi lowered his voice again and said, when I came back from Qingyang, I heard that they also started to promote the visualization technique. That's great. Many underground cities are already promoting the visualization technique for all people. The threshold for learning the visualization technique will be lowered in the future. In this way, low-priced cultivation potions, such as the tranquilizer, will definitely be in great demand. I have already bought a batch and stocked them up first. When the market price goes up, I will sell them and make a lot of money. Luo Yan deeply felt that Yang Lixi's combat power was mediocre, but his business sense was keen. This was something he could never compare to. Even if he had this sense, if he wanted to stock up a large amount of goods, the source of goods alone would be a problem. Only people like Yang Lixi, who had a father who was a director, had the connections and channels. At this time, the wine and food were served, and Yang Lixi picked up a piece of beef for Luo Yan. Pay attention these 2 days. The strategic office will announce some new information, new weapons and equipment, etc. In addition, the new underground city Laolin has been built. Its appearance can greatly alleviate the problem of population saturation in the surrounding underground cities. Soon, a group of residents will be transferred to several underground cities such as Guangling and Qingyang. New underground cities mean a lot of business opportunities. Unfortunately, I have invested all my money and energy in the Qingyang cultivation garden. Otherwise, I have to go there to take a look and see if there are any projects to do. Luo Yan remembered that Xing had mentioned before that there were new underground cities under construction. Now there is a Laolin. If there are more underground cities, maybe the survival problem of some survivors on the surface can be solved. With people, there is productivity. With productivity, more mechs can be built, and the giant beasts can be driven away, and the Yambu space can be closed. For a while, Luo Yan thought far ahead. Yang Lixi took a sip of his drink and said, the 2 underground cities of Hanzhong and Yunma should also be completed and put into use in the next 1 or 2 years. Add to that the construction of the underground network, and soon, the situation of mankind will be different. If we can accumulate a large amount of financial resources before these changes begin. By then, standing on the wind, even a pig can fly. Luo Yan glanced at him and thought that this guy was quite ambitious. Just as he thought so, his cell phone rang, and the 3 words Liu Ruohan appeared on the screen. Yang Lixi jumped up immediately and ran to answer the phone. After eating and drinking, Yang Lixi sent Luo Yan to the college. After returning to the college, Luo Yan went to report to Wei Fenghua, and then returned to his dormitory. No words were spoken that night. The next day, student union meeting room. Luo Yan and Bei walked in, and saw other student union members arriving one after another. As soon as President Liu Ruohan sat down, Yang Lixi put down a glass of water. President, drink some water. Then he picked up the remote control to turn on the air conditioner. You knew there was a meeting today. Why didn't you turn on the air conditioner first? You are ignorant. Finally, he moved a chair and sat on the left side of Liu Ruohan and winked at Luo Yan. Luo Yan looked away, not wanting to greet him at all. People arrived one after another. Liu Ruohan cleared his throat and smiled. Let me talk about a few things. First of all, it's the Forbidden Area activity at the beginning of next month. The college will organize first-year students to go to the Forbidden Area to experience the various impacts of the giant beast ecology. Due to the increase in the number of first-year students this time, our student union will go all out. At that time, we will be divided into 2 teams, one for the 2nd grade and one for the 3rd grade. Student Luo, the 2nd year team will be in charge of you. Luo Yan nodded, thinking of his mecha Bayan. After so long, it should have been upgraded. I have to go to the mecha upgrade warehouse later. Liu Ruohan continued. As for which specific forbidden area it is, the college will inform everyone after the decision is made later. She announced a few more things, all of which were the work of the student union. After assigning tasks to everyone, they dispersed. Luo Yan left the meeting room and ran to the mecha warehouse. When he arrived at the warehouse, he saw Ziguangao from a distance. The teacher in charge of guiding the mecha upgrade work was shouting and directing the students loudly. Seeing Luo Yan coming, he took off his helmet handed the on-site command work to a third-year student, and waved to Luo Yan, indicating that he should go with him. Luo Yan followed him to the office. Ziguangguo picked up a tablet on the table, called up charts and data, and handed them to Luo Yan. Your mecha has been upgraded and sent to the core mecha storage warehouse. As for the specific performance and the latest data, I have done a number of tests on the computer. You can take a look. Ziguangguo picked up a water cup, took a sip of boiled water, smacked his lips and said, after the upgrade, your Bion has reached the elite level assessment level. Divine Guard elite level. This is also the top machine in our core. Only the City Lord's Divine General level can surpass you. Even Colonel Liang's flame has only reached the Divine Guard advanced level assessment after the recent upgrade. I can only say, it's great to be rich. Chapter 605 Bion Trial. Ziguangguo's words "it's good to be rich" made Luo Yan's mouth twitch slightly. In order to upgrade Bion, Luo Yan spent a lot of money, and he was actually distressed. If an ordinary person spent so much money on food, clothing and daily necessities, he would not be able to spend it all in his lifetime. But he also knew the importance of mecha to him. As the saying goes, if you want to do your work well, you must first sharpen your tools. The higher the performance of the mecha, the better, the more work and tasks you can do, and the higher the return you will get. The money you spend now is an investment, and you can only make a profit in the future. Looking at the tablet computer, it lists the comparison and differences between Bion before and after the upgrade. Superconducting neural feedback system. 6-core matrix. Transcendence mode heavy weapon level machine gun. Storm. Divine weapon level heavy sword. Dragon elephant. Looking at each project one by one, and some test data that Ziguangguo did for Bion, Luo Yan was very satisfied. Compared with before, Bion is indeed much stronger now. The superconducting neural feedback system allows the mecha to react faster and move more flexibly, truly making it as easy as using one's arm. The addition of Storm and Dragon Elephant strengthens the attack performance of the mecha. Especially the latter, the suppressive power of 10 dragons and 10 elephants can create a better combat environment for Luo Yan. The biggest improvement is a supercore matrix equipped with 6 cores. In addition to the previous invisibility and energy absorption, the characteristics of Teoti now have an additional gluttony. And in the transcendence mode, the 3 characteristics have a certain degree of deepening and qualitative change. Among them, gluttony can cooperate with energy absorption to enable the mecha to burst kinetic energy faster and play a role in group damage suppression. After reading these, Luo Yan was very satisfied, put down the tablet, and said thank you to Ziguangguo sincerely. After reading the evaluation data of Bion, Luo Yan couldn't wait to see his own mecha, so in the afternoon, he came to the Guanglin Corps headquarters alone. Although he is only a reserve, who in the Corps doesn't know him now? As they walked along, many eyes swept over Luo Yan. Luo Yan didn't care and went straight to the mecha parking warehouse. As soon as he came in, a familiar voice sounded from behind. Are you back? Luo Yan turned around and saw Hiheo, who was wearing a Corps uniform, coming over, followed by Jiuying. Hiheo said without looking away, although the second grade is not like the first grade, you have to take general knowledge classes every day. But you don't slack off. Be careful of being surpassed by others. Jiuying covered her mouth and chuckled, and winked at Luo Yan. Luo Yan smiled at this senior sister, and then heard Hiheo say loudly, let's go, Jiuying. We still have tasks, so we don't have time to reminisce. Come on, come on. Jiuying followed with a driving helmet, and did not forget to say to Luo Yan, this guy has encountered a bottleneck recently, and his temper is terrible. After watching the two leave, Luo Yan found his mecha, Bion. After the upgrade, the Bion did not change much in appearance. The Storm mecha was stored in the armor on the side of the leg, and was sent out with the help of the mechanical arm when it was needed. The Dragon Elephant was behind the mecha, and a weapon rack for storing heavy swords was added. The Black Tortoise shield, which was also a divine weapon, was hung on the left hand of the mecha. Some scratches on the shield had been repaired, and it looked brand new. Luo Yan had applied to the Corps for a trial of the mecha when he came. There was a training ground behind the Corps, which was usually provided for the mechs in the Corps. to stretch their hands and feet, and was used to test new machines. Of course, because it was located in the underground city, the training ground had fire control requirements. Even if you want to test a new machine, you cannot use firepower or combat skills that exceed the standard to avoid unnecessary damage. If you want to really let go, it's better to go to the fighting field on the surface. There is a large field there, and it is on the surface, so you can fight freely. However, for convenience, Luo Yan did not apply to go to the underground fighting field. A moment later, the people in the core saw the Bayan moving, leaving the parking space and heading to the training ground at the back. It's that Bayan, the Divine Guard elite class. I just saw Luo Yan come back. He should be test driving it. Let's go and take a look. Oh my god, a Divine Guard elite class. This is the first time I've seen one. I heard that a lot of money was invested in the transformation of this machine. Where does this kid named Luo get so much money? I advise you not to ask about this. The parking warehouse was bustling with people, and everyone went to the training ground. Standing in front of the cab of Black Thunder, he snorted and got into the mecha. A moment later, Black Thunder and Tanlang left the parking space. In the training ground, Luo Yan was sitting in the cab of Bayan. He pressed the floating point controller with both hands, and a light pattern like a circuit under the controller lit up from time to time. After the upgrade of the Bayan, even the command console was modified. Take the circuit light pattern under the controller, for example. It is part of the superconducting system. It can transmit Luo Yan's neural current to the body faster. Just like now, Luo Yan has a slight thought, and the mecha will make corresponding movements. There is almost no delay, as if it is controlling its own body. Then, Luo Yan tested the transcendence mode again. The pilots watching outside the training ground looked at the surface of the Bayan, and suddenly a ripple like water waves appeared. Then the huge mecha completely disappeared in the training ground. Then there was a slight vibration from the ground. It was obvious that the mecha was moving, but there was no sound at all during the whole process. What's going on? Isn't that the ability of the hypercore matrix? I remember that the behemoth core used by this machine is TOT, which is a stealth feature. But I haven't heard that stealth can even reduce sound. Yes, a 6-core matrix, the transcendence mode can do it. That means that the Bayan is embedded with 6 TOT cores? Although TOT is a mid-level behemoth, this is too luxurious. Otherwise, how do you think its elite rating came from? It's all piled up with money. Amid the discussion, the Bayan showed up again, and then the automatic turret used to test the strength of the mecha in the training ground rose up. Then the automatic turret opened fire, blasting a sky full of fire lines at the Bayan. At this time, orange lines appeared on the Bayan's body, and an invisible force field appeared around it. Those fire lines that were blasting all over the sky suddenly seemed to be pulled by something, and all projected towards that force field, causing thousands of ripples on the force field. As the ripples intersected, Luo Yan saw the mecha's kinetic energy storage rising rapidly on the command platform, and soon reached the basic requirements for explosive kinetic energy. This was the effect of the TOT and gluttony characteristics. And in the transcendence mode, gluttony not only actively gathered kinetic energy to attack, but also increased the kinetic energy capacity and conversion rate. Chapter 606 Domineering. The kinetic energy was fully charged, but Luo Yan did not choose to explode, fearing that he would damage the facilities of the training ground. He invested all his money in upgrading the mecha. Now that the facilities were damaged, he had no money to compensate the core. Then, Luo Yan drove the mecha again, took off the dragon elephant on the back, and practiced some combat skills. After getting familiar with the operation, Bayan returned to the parking warehouse. After the test, Luo Yan summarized. Bayan is now more responsive and flexible, and the transcendence mode has greatly improved the survivability of the mecha. Coupled with the Black Tortoise shield and Ming Snake armor, even if it is against the Overlord Beast, it is impossible to win, but retreat is still possible. After leaving the warehouse, Luo Yan went to the lounge of the 3rd Squad and 4th Team. However, because Dizeng took a squad to support Pingayao, the core is now a little short of manpower. The 3rd Squad and 4th Team did not return from the mission on the surface, so Luo Yan had to give up. It was already evening when he left the Corps, and Luo Yan simply did not return to the academy, but went to the old city instead. Jude building. When Luo Yan arrived, it was already night. He wore a mask and a cloak, and entered the restaurant in a low-key manner. In the restaurant hall, Sukiyu, one of Lei Qi's 2 women, was playing the piper and performing her specialty. The 2 women now make money with their own abilities, and the red gate only provides a shelter from the wind and rain. They are self-reliant and live a good life. At this time, a drunk man among the diners walked towards Sukiyu with a bottle of wine. In the hall, 2 waiters quickly stopped him, greeted him with a smile, and talked a lot. The general idea was to ask the diner to return to his seat, and hinted that Sukiyu was just performing for money. Unexpectedly, the man yelled, "Get out of the way. Don't you see who I am? I, Peng Long, think highly of her, so I invited her to drink. Why are you making trouble?" Sukiyu didn't want to cause any more trouble, so she put down her piper and smiled lightly. "Thank you, Mr. Peng, for your kindness. I'm not talented, but I deserve to be appreciated by you. I should drink this glass of wine." Peng Long laughed. "See, Miss Sukiyu is so reasonable." Then he staggered forward and poured a glass of wine for Sukiyu. After Sukiyu drank it, she wanted to leave, but the man surnamed Peng grabbed her hand and said, "Sukiyu, don't perform here. Come with me. There will be a lot of good days waiting for you in the future." Sukiyu's face turned cold at this time. "Mr. Peng, please respect yourself. Hey, I gave you face, right? You are a street singer. Why are you pretending to be a loyal heroine? I advise you not to be ungrateful." Peng Long pulled Sukiyu away. A hand pressed on his wrist. Peng Long looked up and saw a man wearing a wooden mask holding his hand. He shouted, "I'll count to 3. If you don't let go, I'll make you pay for it." As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Yan picked up the fingers that he was holding Sukiyu with and broke them with a snap. Peng Long screamed and opened his mouth to curse. A fist hit his face. Peng Long's mouth and nose were bleeding, and 7 or 8 of his white teeth fell out. Luo Yan pulled his hair and dragged him to the fence and threw Peng Long directly down. Only then did he say coldly, "Don't let me see you again." The whole room was silent. Then Peng Long's friend stood up, pointed at Luo Yan, and shouted angrily, "You little brat, you dare to disrespect our brother Peng. Do you know who we are? He's wearing a mask and pretending to be a ghost. Let's go together and kill him." But at this moment, 7 or 8 waiters in the restaurant came up, all with gloomy faces, some with cold smiles. Especially the 2 who had stopped Peng Long just now. They no longer looked as humble as before, now with ferocious faces. Then these waiters surrounded the 3 people and took them out. A middle-aged man with a goatee came out and bowed to everyone. "Sorry to bother you. I will waive your bill today. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is the shopkeeper of Judalao." He came to Luo Yan and said respectfully, "Mr. Chigi, you are back." Luo Yan nodded, looked at Qin Qiu again, and said calmly, "If you don't want to drink in the future, you don't have to. People from Judalao don't need to do these things to accompany you." Qin Qiu shrugged his shoulders slightly and said with watery eyes, "Yes." Luo Yan looked at the shopkeeper again. "Tell the guys that the restaurant has its own rules. You are a guest when you enter the door, but guests must also abide by our rules. If there is any violation of the rules, just remind them once. If you don't listen, deal with it." The word "deal with" made the diners feel overbearing. But looking back, now that Red Gate dominates the area with such a force, the act of reminding once is already considered polite. After dealing with this small matter, Luo Yan walked into the quiet room. The shopkeeper followed him. "Where is Wenzhao?" In the past, Wenzhao was the one who received Luo Yan. Today, he was not there, so Luo Yan asked. The shopkeeper said, "Mr. Wenzhao left the underground city yesterday, saying that he had something to deal with at the camp." Camp? Luo Yan felt strange. What else was there in the coyote camp that needed Wenzhao to deal with? Li Yu, Wei Junai, and Yang Hao are now in charge of the coyote camp. When Yu Bei left with a bald head, Luo Yan ordered him to transfer the personnel of the Silver Bay base, including the Mecha and the engineer crossing Qinggang, to the coyote camp. Now with the mecha in hand and Yubei and several mecha masters, even if Huangquan's people come to harass again, they are not afraid. There is really no reason for Wen Zhao to go to the camp. Luo Yan nodded. I know, you go down. He decided to go to the Xiaolang camp to see what's going on before going to the forbidden area. After the shopkeeper left, Luo Yan made a slight adjustment and activated the dragon transformation posture. Immediately, dragon scales emerged and quickly covered Luo Yan's body. The ink in Luo Yan's eye sockets spread rapidly, and a thin golden line appeared in the middle of his bright red eyes, like the vertical pupils of some animals. On the forehead, the bangs parted, and a black curved horn popped out. Then rows of short black spikes on the shoulders and fists emerged like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Then, the short curved corner on Luo Yan's forehead showed several blood red lines. They emitted a scarlet light, which was very dim and almost unnoticeable under the light. Finally, the scale in the middle of Luo Yan's chest arched up, and an oval crystal the size of a quail egg emerged from it. Then, a golden line appeared in the middle of the crystal, like the vertical pupil of some cold-blooded animal, looking around coldly. Luo Yan exhaled a hot breath from his mouth. He could feel that, although the dragon transformation posture was only slightly different from before, in fact, there was a huge difference. Chapter 607, Claws of Evil. Horns of Death. Blood pupils. Luo Yan only felt that there was a furnace burning in his body, and a huge force was surging in his blood vessels. The faint roar of the giant beast echoed in his mind, and a sense of resentment surged in his heart, making him long for blood and killing. He closed his eyes, and recalled his childhood. He remembered that, when he was a child in the middle of summer, whenever he woke up at night, he would always hear the humming sound of the sewing machine motor in the next room. That was the sound of his mother taking some clothes from the factory to process, in order to supplement the family income. Whenever he heard this sound, he would always feel calm, and fall asleep to the sound of the sewing machine. Now, Luo Yan recalled this feeling, and calmed himself down. Gradually, the roar of the giant beast in his mind disappeared. The malice and resentment in his heart were calmed down. He opened his eyes again, and the golden lines in his red eyes dimmed a lot. Luo Yan stretched out his hand again, and his heart moved. Clang! A sound like the sound of a sword rang out. From Luo Yan's 5 fingers, a root of claws emitting a demonic red light popped out. Under the gaze of the Wu Wang burning eyes, some information emerged on the claws. Calamity claws. Claws formed by the condensation of disaster light, extremely sharp, with a certain chance of adding any one of the disasters of weapon dissolution, water, and fire, or evil disease when attacking. Using the claws will not consume the disaster light, but the disaster light will be lost when the disaster effect appears. Once the disaster light is exhausted, the claws cannot be activated. Luo Yan looked at the calamity claws in his hand, tried to stretch out a claw, and gently scratched the wooden table next to him. Hiss. With a slight sound, the table broke into 2 halves, and fell to the ground. Very sharp. The sharpness of a divine weapon is no more than this. But it seems that the claws can only be used in close combat. After all, its length is only equivalent to that of a dagger. Luo Yan looked at a mirror on the wall again, which reflected his current appearance. When his eyes fell on the curved horn on his forehead, he saw other information. Death horn, a curved horn that condenses a large amount of death aura, capable of releasing demon dragon mist. The water mist containing a strong death aura can be spread around for self-defense. It can also be condensed and sprayed to kill thousands of miles away. Demon dragon mist, highly toxic, corrosive, killing, filthy god. Obviously, the death aura in this death horn comes from Pan Crossing's mecha and the giant beast Aoyi from the Valley of Sorrow. Although Luo Yan had obtained the death aura before, he had never used it much. Unexpectedly, today, they actually formed a similar skill, Demon Dragon Mist. Compared with Evil Claws, Demon Dragon Mist is obviously more convenient. It can be spread around, or condensed and sprayed. It is quite flexible to use. In addition, the Demon Dragon Mist has 4 characteristics, including highly toxic. The first 3 are easier to understand. But Luo Yan didn't know what filthy god meant. It seems that he has to figure it out in actual combat. Finally, he noticed the eye-like crystal on his chest. The crystal is blood red in color, with a golden stripe in the middle, making it look like the eye of some cold-blooded animal. Blood pupil. It can hold a large amount of blood in use. Boiling blood. Boiling blood burns the blood stored in the blood pupil to obtain the corresponding characteristic blessing. Currently, the blood pupil contains a large amount of blood. Burning them can bring about improvements in strength, physical strength, explosiveness, reaction speed, etc. It can also be refined into essence blood. Different essence blood will bring different characteristic blessings. Blood pupil. Luo Yan closed his eyes slightly. The blood contained in the pupil crystal on his chest was obviously from the large amount of mixed blood in the blood river cauldron. I didn't expect that in addition to being used as a tonic for the blood transformation sutra, it also has these functions. However, the ability of boiling blood is similar to the function of the blood transformation sutra. At least now, the effect of burning those large amounts of blood is similar to the first and second levels of the blood transformation sutra. I don't know what kind of bonus it can bring after refining it into essence blood and burning it, but from the current transformation into a dragon posture, it is not difficult to see the evil claws, the dead horns and the blood pupils. This posture has only constructed its own combat system at this moment. The blood in the blood pupils provides the most basic energy for this posture. The evil claws are used for close combat, and the dead horns can defend and attack from a distance. In addition, after Luo Yan's attempts, he found that he could no longer use the Yuan force when using the transformation into a dragon posture. It seems that there is a huge conflict between the two. Therefore, the secret method that relies on the Yuan force to launch cannot be used. But it does not affect combat skills, mysterious arts and footwork. It's just that these three originally needed to consume Yuan force, but now they have become blood, and the power and effect have also changed. Combat skills can be used, which means that there should be no problem with the unique skills. Luo Yan was slightly relieved. Otherwise, if the transformation into a dragon posture could only use the two attack methods of evil claws and dead horns, it would be too useless. However, this form affected by the dragon blood essence has completely conflicted with the Yuan force, and it is difficult to coexist. This seems to hint at the conflict between the giant beast and humans. Release the dragon transformation posture. Luo Yan exhaled a breath, feeling tired. Now the power of the dragon transformation posture has greatly increased, but the burden is heavier than before. To suppress the murderous intent at all times, Luo Yan needs to consume a lot of energy. However, the dragon transformation posture has now achieved a stage of growth, and Luo Yan has one more trump card in his hand. This is a good thing after all, at least, for now. After resting for a while, he left the Jude building. The next afternoon, Luo Yan reported to the core headquarters that the Bion has been upgraded. The core will assign tasks next. Luo Yan also wants to drive the Bion for actual combat in order to better understand the performance of the machine. Arriving at the lounge of the 3rd squad and the 4th team, Luo Yan found that Bei was there as soon as he entered the door. Student Luo, good afternoon. Bei, wearing an eye patch, greeted him quite energetically. Good afternoon. Luo Yan nodded slightly, looked around and said, Captain and the others are not here? Bei shrugged his shoulders to show that he didn't know. At this time, footsteps were heard outside the door. Then the door opened, and Yan Wenbo, Du Bu Changxin, and Kang Shun walked in. Seeing Luo Yan and the others, Yan Wenbo, with some dark circles around his eyes, said, Little Luo and Xiao Bei, you are here too. That's great. Let's go. We just happen to have a mission. Change gear and attack. I'll tell you the details on the way. A moment later, Luo Yan sat in the cab of the Bion, and Yan Wenbo's voice sounded in the squad channel on the command platform. Yesterday, when the 2nd shift and the 6th team were performing a patrol mission on the surface, 2 mechs lost contact. They were the Black Thunder and the Tanlang. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 608 Search and Rescue. Lost Contact. Black Thunder and Tanlang. Luo Yang couldn't help but frowned, Thinking back to yesterday, when he ran into Hiheo and Sujiyu in the parking warehouse. They were about to go on a mission. And they lost contact. In the team communication channel, Baking called out, Senior He and Senior Su, how come they lost contact? Yan Wenbo said, their team was responsible for patrolling the 3rd security zone yesterday. According to their captain, Hiheo and Sujiyu were responsible for patrolling the Beoji mountain area yesterday. Until 9 o'clock last night, Hiheo was still in contact with the team, but when we called them in the morning, we couldn't get in touch. Later, Team 6 went to the camping site where Hiheo and the others had camped last night, and found that the mecha was not nearby. They searched for a whole morning, but unfortunately there was no result, so they could only ask the Corps for help. Due to the current shortage of manpower in the Corps, many teams have their own tasks and cannot leave. At present, our team is the only one that has not been assigned a task, so Staff Officer Zeng just called me over and asked us to meet up with Team 6 to help them find the 2 lost mechs. At this time, they had already arrived at the emergency attack patio. So Yan Wenbo temporarily stopped communicating. A moment later, Luo Yan drove the bun out of the attack cabin, joined Yan Wenbo and others, and then went to the 3rd warning area together. Beoji Mountain. The mountains in this area are continuous and steep, with an average height of 200 to 300 meters. Looking around, the mountains are undulating, forming a natural barrier. The mountains are all lush and green. The surface after the natural disaster is densely covered with vegetation, except for some surface camps and bases that are still inhabited. Even the city has become a paradise for plants and animals because it has been abandoned for too long. After joining the 2nd squad and the 6th team, Yan Wenbo and the captain of the 6th team quickly negotiated and decided on their respective search ranges. The team that Luo Yan was in set off and began to go deep into the forest. Entering the forest, Bei released the strange black nothingness. After this strange appearance like an invisible man wearing a black cloak, under Bei's control, the figure suddenly dispersed into countless little black nothingness. After Bei's realm was improved, and her understanding of the weirdness became deeper and deeper, the 8 weirdnesses gradually found more uses in her hands. Just like now, Hei Wu dispersed countless black little people like clones, and they disappeared into the air at once. Then, in this vast forest and continuous mountains, there were continuous clones of Hei Wu. They appeared in the shadows of trees, in the gaps between flowers and plants, or emerged from the water with fallen leaves, or were attracted by flying birds, and forgot their tasks. But no matter whether they were focused or distracted, what they saw and heard would be passed on to Bei. At this time, several little Hei Wu appeared in a gloomy but huge cave. Some of them jumped up like small black jellyfish, floating in the air, and slowly drifted into the depths of the cave. Some of them flickered, disappeared in the shadows here, and then came out in the darkness there. After a while, one of the little Hei Wu landed on a ball of spider silk, and it saw a black mecha deep in the spider silk. Black thunder. But at this moment, a group of blood appeared behind the little black ghost. Then a group of black shadows pounced on it, and swallowed the little black ghost in one bite. The other little black ghosts were also devoured, whether they were floating in the air or in the shadows. They were all eaten by the black shadows. In the forest, Bei suddenly called out softly. Luo Yan's voice immediately rang out in the team channel. Are you okay, Xiao Bei? Bei heard the concern in Luo Yan's words and felt happy. Then he said seriously, I'm fine. I think I know where Senior Hiheo is. They are in a cave, and the mecha is covered with spider silk. Yan Wenbo asked curiously, spider silk? It's probably a giant beast that can entangle the mecha. Spider silk and giant beast. Luo Yan immediately thought of a giant spider. Neety bride. At that time in the Misty Canyon, he and Bei encountered a Neety bride. The giant beast with the upper body of a mature woman and the lower body of a spider captured the 8 gates in the canyon. Bei thought the same as him. Student Luo, do you think it could be the network bride? Network bride, the upper level giant spider in the Misty Canyon? Kang Shun's voice also rang out. It's not impossible. With the current strength of Hiheo and Sujiyu, there is no reason why they would lose contact if they hadn't run into an upper level giant beast. Yan Wenbo said, Xiao Bei, lead the way for us. I'll notify Team 6 to come over as well. Okay, follow me. Asterisk 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 this is a huge cave. Deep and dark. Deep in the cave, spider silk is everywhere. Large strands of spider silk crisscross and crisscross, like a maze, covering the entire cave space. On these spider silks, from time to time, spiders as big as buffaloes, with bristles on their legs and compound eyes emitting red light, crawl quickly. If you look from mid-air, it is not difficult to see that there are two mechs in the middle of this spider silk web array. Black Thunder and Greedy Wolf. Black Thunder stood straight with his hands spread out, as if protecting Greedy Wolf behind him. But no matter Black Thunder or Greedy Wolf, their bodies were entangled in dense spider silk into a large cocoon. On this large cocoon, spiders as big as buffaloes were crawling all over it. They were gnawing at the outside of the body, making a tooth-grinding friction sound in the cave. In the Black Thunder's cab, through the panoramic window, with the help of the mech's peripheral lighting, Jiuying saw those spiders constantly coming and going on his mecha. Damn, these things are so disgusting. Jiuying's voice was a little lost in the communication channel. I'm the one who implicated you this time. Jiuying said without thinking. Bullshit, what are we talking about, implicating each other or not? Besides, rather than saying that you implicated me, it's better to say that I was too careless. I didn't expect that there was a spider ghost hiding near our underground city. Jiuying sighed and said, this is not your fault. Who knew that the spider silk of that thing is not only highly toxic, but also can interfere with radar reconnaissance, and it can also affect our communications when entangled in mecha. It can only be said that humans' understanding of behemoths is far less than we think. Jiuying said loudly, why are you sighing? Cheer up. It's already afternoon. The captain couldn't contact us in the morning, so he must have launched a search and rescue. Although those bugs are gnawing at the armor, it will take a few days for them to bite through it. In a few days, are you still afraid that the underground city can't find us? Besides, if it weren't for these damn spider silks that entangled the mecha tightly, I would have to fight that spider ghost alone, and there would be no need to wait for others to come and rescue us. Chapter 609 Spider Ghost. Ganlang. Jiuying smiled and revealed his dimples when he heard what Jiuying said. Although Jiuying's words were very arrogant, they were particularly encouraging at this time. It made people feel that things were not yet at the point of no return. Jiuying was also like this in the desperate battlefield. Others were already discouraged, but this guy was still boasting, as if the sky falling was not a big deal. He never said comforting words, but every word he said had the power to inspire people. Stop bragging. Can you beat the upper level? Luo had to cooperate with Bei to kill an upper level. With just you'd be giving the spider ghost a head, right? Jiuying teased him. In the communication channel, Jiuying snorted, you underestimated me, right? This is mainly because I didn't have a chance to show my abilities. Besides, if I can't beat him, I still have you. Jiuying curled up in the chair, and when she heard this, she laughed so hard that her body shook. Why, you don't fight alone anymore? Jiuying said loudly, a real man should be able to bend and stretch. Is it strange to ask for help when you can't beat him? Jiuying has known him for more than 3 years and knew that he was deliberately letting himself relax. So he didn't keep on talking about this topic. The girl looked out the panoramic window, and outside, big spiders kept coming and going. Jiuying whispered, strange, since the spider ghost has caught us, why doesn't it kill us? Jiuying thought for a moment and said, you can see that there are many bugs here besides the spider ghost. These spiders should be the descendants of the spider ghost. Obviously, it intends to feed us to the bugs. Jiuying shook his head. I'm afraid the two of us are not enough to fill the gaps between these spiders, right? Besides, if the target is us, it can pry open the panoramic window and catch us out now. Jiuying said casually, if the target is not us, it can't be the mecha? Could these spiders grow up eating metal and motor oil? Jiuying couldn't answer this question. After a while, the girl whispered, have you heard of a saying? What saying? It is said that after some mechs were destroyed by giant beasts, some people found some flesh and blood tissues and even organs at the scene in addition to armor and parts. And those things have nothing to do with giant beasts. The communicator was silent for a moment. Then Jiuying's voice rang out. What do you want to say? You don't want to say that the mechs we are driving are actually alive. Are they giants? Or similar creatures? I told you long ago, don't listen to all that nonsense. How is that possible? Jiuying smiled. Maybe, just treat it as nonsense. After saying that, Jiuying's face was not very good. She didn't believe that there would be flesh and blood tissues and organs in the mecha, and didn't believe that there were creatures like giants inside the mecha. But now, what about these spiders biting the mecha? It can't be like what Hiheo said, that they feed on armor and engine oil. Asterisk 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 we're here. The demon machine 8 gates, which looked like a white dog, stopped. In front, through the woods, a mountain range could be seen. At the foot of one of the high mountains, there was a cave of astonishing height. The cave was even more exaggerated than the entrance to the underground tunnel. I don't know if it was formed naturally or dug out by humans. In short, it was more than enough for the mecha to get in. I can't see anything. Besides, there is no signal from the giant beast or the mecha. Kang Shun's voice rang out in the communication channel. Luo Yan's eyes widened slightly, and circles of fire appeared in his eyes. Wu Wang burning eyes. The world suddenly turned into simple lines in his eyes, and the mountain could no longer block his sight. Luo Yan immediately saw that deep in the cave, above the cave, there was a huge biological grey light lurking. When he stared at the grey light, some information quickly appeared above the grey light. Spider ghost. Luo Yan said in a deep voice, the giant beast in the cave is not the net bride, but the spider ghost. While speaking, Luo Yan remembered that after the summer vacation last year, not long after returning from Qingyang, the Yanfu space appeared above the underground city. At that time, the Yanfu space released a lot of giant beasts to the ground, one of which was the spider ghost. At that time, they were about to deal with the spider ghost, but the giant beast left the battlefield. So to speak, the spider ghost that left the battlefield at that time should have hidden here. It actually hid near the third warning area for more than half a year. Soon, Luo Yan saw the Black Thunder and Greedy Wolf mechas again, and confirmed that there was a human-shaped grey light in each of the two mechas. Hiheo and the other two were still alive. He calmed down a little, and then reported what he saw to Yan Wenbo. Yan Wenbo thought for a while and said, the plan is this. Kang Shun, you are responsible for creating a commotion and attracting the spider ghost out of the cave. After the giant beast comes out, Xiao Bei, you will go into the cave invisibly and rescue Hiheo and the other two. Others, come with me. Xiao Luo, you are responsible for blocking the door. Don't let the spider ghost in, otherwise it may run away. After the division of labor, Bei asked Heli Wu to cover the 8 gates, and the white dog-like body disappeared into the air. Then Kang Shun drove his mecha judge forward, picked up a rifle, and casually fired at the surrounding mountains and forests. Bang 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 bang. Fierce and loud gunshots rang out, and the surrounding trees were broken by bullets, startling a group of forest birds. Luo Yan looked into the cave, and found that the spider ghost's biological grey light was squirming, as if the giant beast was awakened from its slumber. However, the spider ghost had no intention of leaving the cave. However, some much smaller creatures with the same spider outlines crawled towards the cave in trance. How is it, Xiao Luo? Did the spider ghost move? Since the giant beast radar was useless, Yan Wenbo could only rely on Luo Yan's Shenzang now. No. The spider ghost is cunning. Let its offspring come out to check. Luo Yan said in a deep voice, but I have observed that there is no other exit in the cave. I will go in and drive the spider ghost out. Bei immediately shouted, this is too dangerous. I will go in with you. Luo Yan's mouth corners slightly raised. No need, the spider ghost is so cunning by nature. What do you think will happen if it is suddenly stabbed by an invisible enemy? After saying that, Bayan activated the supercore matrix. Now there are 6 cores embedded in the matrix, and it enters the transcendence mode as soon as it is activated. The mecha flashed and disappeared from everyone's sight, and even the sound of the mecha's action disappeared completely. Teoti, invisible. The hidden Bayan went to the cave. Although Luo Yan felt that the probability of scaring away the spider ghost was very high, he was also prepared for failure. And if it failed, among all the machines, only his Bayan could fight against a top level in a limited space. With this thought in mind, he took on this most difficult part without hesitation. Chapter 610. Shocking the enemy. Several giant spiders the size of buffaloes crawled out of the cave. The offspring of these spider ghosts were so huge that the animals living nearby were immediately scared and fled for their lives. However, these giant spiders had no interest in animals. They didn't even look at them. Instead, they stared at Kang Shun's mecha judge in the forest not far away. With a cold light flashing in their compound eyes, they quickly crawled out of the cave. Kang Shun also discovered these giant spiders. The mecha judge raised its rifle and locked these spiders with the help of the computer. Bang bang bang. The rifle spewed out flames, and the bullets rotated and rubbed against the air to produce flames, causing flashes of fire above the forest. The flames passed through the trees, plowing gullies in the dense forest, and broken leaves flew. Two of the giant spiders that had just left the cave were immediately blown to pieces. The other spiders scattered and rushed into the woods, trying to escape under the cover of the trees. Under Luo Yan's control, Bayan, who had turned on invisibility, did not intervene in the battle, and walked into the cave. Looking at the cave outside the panoramic window, Luo Yan was sure that it was dug by the spider ghost. Because the cave was too flat, both the ground and the cave ceiling were full of traces of artificial excavation. It didn't look like a naturally generated cave. The Wuwang burning ice swept into the cave, determined the location of the two Black Thunder mechs, and walked silently. As the distance between the two sides shortened, Luo Yan saw the light screen display on the command console, searching for two channel signals. Obviously, this was the communication signal between Black Thunder and Tanlang. However, the signal was very weak. If you didn't enter the cave and get close to the two Black Thunder mechs, you couldn't receive it at all. Luo Yan immediately sent a communication request. The request was approved in 3 seconds. Luo Yan. Heheo's surprised voice sounded in the communicator. It's me. Luo Yan replied calmly. Heheoki said, where are you? Why can't I see you? I turned on invisibility. Wait a moment, I'll let you out after I drive away the spider ghost. Sujiyu hurriedly said, you have to be careful of those spider silks. Those things are very troublesome and very sticky. If you get entangled in too many, the mecha will be unable to move and will be captured like us. Moreover, these things will absorb energy. In just one night, the energy furnace lost nearly half of its energy. Okay, I'll pay attention. After Luo Yan answered, he used the Wuwang burning eyes to look at the spider silk deep in the cave. Information immediately popped up on those spider silks. Viscosity, toxicity, toughness, hardness, etc. Luo Yan found that the other values of the spider ghost's spider silk were frighteningly high. Only the hardness was not good. The value was very low. After he understood it clearly, he looked at the spider ghost above the cave. The giant beast was now curled up in a ball and seemed to be sleeping. Luo Yan immediately clicked on the light screen on the command desk, and the armor on the left leg of Bayan opened. The mechanical arm stretched out and sent out a uniquely shaped rifle. Heavy duty rifle, Storm. Bayan picked up the rifle, aimed at the spider ghost on it, and lightly pressed the trigger. Bang. The muzzle flame spurted out, and a bullet with violent kinetic energy drew a clear flame in the dim cave, and instantly hit the spider ghost. The insect shell was shattered and scattered. The spider ghost screamed, and the curled body quickly unfolded, returning to the appearance of half man and half spider. The spider ghost was attached to the stone wall of the cave. The lower body of the spider was like a chariot, firmly fixed on the stone wall, and the upper body, similar to a human, was covered with thick armor, holding a shield and a gun. On the head that was like wearing a helmet. More than a dozen large and small compound eyes with extremely wide vision were distributed around the head, flashing red light, observing the surroundings. Bayan, who was using the invisibility function, raised his rifle Storm again. This time, Luo Yan aimed at the joint of one of its segmented insect limbs. Bang! Storm fired again. It was still a burst of fire. Almost at the same time as the gunshot, a firelight lit up in the dim cave, and the next moment it hit the joint of the spider ghost's insect limb. There was no shell to protect it, and a fan-shaped powder exploded. One of the spider ghost's insect limbs was broken, and it immediately fell from the wall, and fell to the ground, then quickly climbed up, and spread a deep cold light. The anti-membrane unfolded. The anti-membrane released by the spider ghost enveloped the entire cave. Bian was within the range of the anti-membrane. Luo Yang could easily feel through the empathy system that the air seemed to be filled with spider silk, making the movements full of stickiness and sluggishness. At this moment, the spider ghost in the cave suddenly expanded its abdomen to a great extent. Heio's voice rang out in the communication channel. Be careful, that thing is going to spray spider silk, and it's 360 degrees without blind spots. Luo Yan got the reminder and immediately raised the magic level shield Zuanwu forward, opening 36 layers of defense barriers. The spider ghost on the other side of the cave suddenly sprayed out a stream of spider silk. With the spider ghost as the center, the spider silk gushed out in all directions. In the limited space of the cave, it is difficult to avoid such an attack. The spider ghost used this method to force out the opponent hiding in the dark. This method worked quickly. Through the feedback of the spider silk, the spider ghost immediately realized that the spider silk it sprayed out was blocked by something in the cave behind it. As soon as it looked in that direction, one of its compound eyes captured that the spider silk it sprayed out seemed to be stuck on an invisible wall. They stayed in midair, and at this time, a crack appeared in the middle of the silk wall. It was as if sunlight broke out from the cracks, and a golden light rushed forward at a very fast speed, causing the temperature of the cave to rise sharply, and at the same time, it also blasted towards the spider ghost at a very fast speed. Secret skill. A long rainbow. The spider ghost had just had time to lift up its armor shield when it was hit by the golden rainbow light. The shield, arms, and even the side corners of its head were swept by the rainbow light. With a hissing sound. First the armor shield cracked, then the arms shattered, then the side of the head shattered, and several compound eyes broke into pieces. The blood of the insect beetle splattered all over the ground. The spider ghost screamed, and its insect limbs moved. It refused to stay in the cave, and rushed out of the cave. Seeing this, Luo Yan notified Yan Wenbo, and then he lifted the invisibility feature, and walked towards the two machines of Black Thunder and Greedy Wolf. The magic weapon level longsword dragon elephant slashed, splitting the spiders attached to the Black Thunder machine into pieces. Then, blazing sunlight rose around the body of the Bian machine. Luo Yan activated the Yan Yangjing, and the body of the dragon elephant sword was immediately covered with sunlight, emitting high temperature. Even the edge of the sword was glowing red, like a red-hot iron. He used the sword to cut everything. The spider silk wrapped around the Black Thunder was cut by the dragon elephant like tofu. The spider silk even caught fire, and burned in the part cut by the long sword, burning into black ash, and emitting poisonous smoke. Bian held the dragon elephant and burst out with sunlight. In a few strokes, he cleaned the spider silk on the Black Thunder and Tanlang's body. Chapter 611 Hidden Dangers. Outside the cave, Kang Shun had already cleaned up the spider ghost offspring. At this time, the giant beast radar, which had been silent, sounded an alarm. A red signal appeared in the cave. Kang Shun was nervous, and then he heard Yan Wenbo's voice on the communication channel. The spider ghost is coming. Everyone be careful. Try not to get entangled in its spider silk. Once you are entangled in the spider silk, cut it open immediately with a sharp object. In addition, its spider silk is afraid of fire and high temperature. All this information was provided by Luo Yan. The mecha embroidered tiger emerged from the woods. Yan Wenbo continued, Changxin, you and I will be responsible for the main attack. Xiao Bei, Kangshan, you will control and support. Got it. Okay. Dugu Changxin and Bei responded at the same time. At this time, in that cave, the huge body of the spider ghost suddenly emerged. This giant beast of the genus Cypripedium, now with a broken armor shield and a broken arm hanging beside it, looked embarrassed. As soon as it appeared, Yan Wenbo said in a deep voice, action. The spider ghost had been dormant here for more than half a year. If it had not been accidentally hit this time, it would have been discovered, because of the search and rescue of the two Black Thunder bodies. God knows how many young spiders this thing has bred by the time it was discovered. If it forms a nest, it will definitely threaten the underground city. So now it is discovered that Yan Wenbo has made up his mind to kill this upper level insect giant beast. Suddenly, Yan Wenbo's embroidered tiger and Dugu Changxin's flying lightning rushed over, one on the left and one on the right, besieging the spider ghost. In the distance, Kang Shun's judge quickly formed a seal, and fire snakes were released one after another, but they did not rush to attack, but gathered together. Base 8 Gates has changed into a bone mask face. She released weirdness, causing white bone hands without flesh and blood to suddenly appear on the spider ghost. Those bone hands strangled the spider ghost's hands, feet, head and other places, making it extremely inconvenient for this upper level giant beast to move. This created a good opportunity for Xiu and Feridan to attack. Yan Wenbo and Hugu Changxin were not polite and took turns to use various combat skills on the spider ghost, making the giant beast scream. Over there, Kang Shun's fire snakes finally accumulated enough. The mecha judge immediately pushed his hands in the direction of the spider ghost, and countless fire snakes surged like a long river, sweeping towards the spider ghost. Mystical arts. Fire pythons. The long river of scorching flames. The fire river was coming fiercely, and Xiu and Feridan hurriedly moved away. The spider ghost was controlled by the bone hand, and could not move freely. When the fire river came, the giant beast was immediately rushed. One after another, the fire pythons entangled the spider ghost, and more entangled. Finally, from a distance, the spider ghost seemed to be swept up by this long river. Finally, the flames shattered, and the violent explosion set off a strong wind, uprooting countless trees. The flames were fierce and thick smoke rose. But the spider ghost still rushed out from the flames and smoke. As a high-level giant beast, Kang Shun's long river of Shengan was not enough to kill it. Instead, it aroused its ferocity. It rushed out, and the spear in its hand suddenly turned into a black meteor, and in a blink of an eye it came to the chest of the embroidered tiger. Suddenly a group of white shadows rushed out and knocked the embroidered tiger away. It was the magic machine 8 Gates. When this white dog-like mecha knocked the embroidered tiger away, it was hit by the spider ghost's throwing spear and pierced through the body by the black spear. But this mecha suddenly turned into a huge white paper man, just like those white paper men burned for ancestors, with a strange smile on his face. Suddenly, the paper man was stained with ink all over, and his body changed, turning into the appearance of the giant beast spider ghost. Then it burned, and turned into ashes. In the distance, the giant beast of the genus of the cyprid suddenly broke the insect armor on its chest, and green insect blood flowed out, as if it was injured by the spear it threw out. The spider ghost retreated several steps, his compound eyes flickered, and he didn't understand what happened. This is a new ability of the strange Beitong. After taking damage, it can return part of the damage to the opponent through the curse. The spider ghost accidentally took its own attack, and at this time, the mecha Fidian took the opportunity to rush over. Fidian, who looks like an ancient general, volleyed his spear into the air and smashed it hard at the spider ghost. The spear pulled the air and energy, and transformed into a dragon beast with bared fangs and claws. This dragon leaned down and swooped down, as if it was going to return to the raging sea, and slammed into the spider ghost with a roar. Combat skills. Dragon returns to the sea. The spider ghost took a hit, and its insect armor was broken. It turned around, and drilled into the cave. It wanted to return to its own nest. At this moment, in the darkness inside the cave, bright beams of light suddenly broke through the air. The dense beams of light were like a storm, which blasted the spider ghost's body left and right and backed out of the cave. Yan Wenbo and others watched the spider ghost sink into the cave, but the next moment, dense gunshots rang out in the cave. Then the spider ghost was blasted out by the storm of bullets, and then Bayan, holding a rifle, strode out. Student Luo. Bei shouted happily, and then his face became serious. A huge shadow suddenly rose in the forest. It was a headless giant, dragging a broken big sword, and the armor on his body had straight steel spikes, on which heads were hung. Weird, the headless general. At this time, the headless general reached out, and took the head of a bull demon from the steel spikes, and then pressed it on his neck. The bull demon head had its eyes closed, but when it was pressed on the headless general's neck, it suddenly opened its eyes and let out a roar. Suddenly, the headless general burst out with a terrifying breath of power. It dragged the sword and rushed, and the breath around it rose, and it turned into a phantom of a demon bull with red eyes and black horns. After the realm is improved, and the control of weirdness is deepened, the headless general can take off the many heads hanging on his body and press them on his neck, thereby gaining corresponding improvements. At this moment, The headless general rushed behind the spider ghost, and while the spider ghost was forced out of the cave by the fierce firepower of the Bion, the broken big sword danced with evil wind, bringing up a black and red light, sweeping the spider ghost's back. Swish! With a sharp sound that made people frown, the insect armor on the spider ghost's back was torn apart, and blood gushed out immediately. The spider ghost was attacked from both sides, and screamed, and pale flames immediately appeared in the surrounding space. Those flames quickly turned into spiders. It was as if invisible and intangible spiders appeared in the air, allowing those pale fire spiders to move quickly. Most of them rushed towards the headless general. Some attacked Bion. In the cab of Bion, Luo Yan drove the Wu Wang burning eye to glance at those pale fire spiders, and his face suddenly became solemn. Soul Spider, the strange spider transformed by the spider ghost's soul fire, contaminated by the soul fire, lost its soul. This thing is not a good thing. Luo Yan immediately moved the rifle Storm, which could fire at a rate of over 10,000 attacks in 1 minute. It fired a dense barrage of bullets, blasting all the soul spiders that were crawling towards it into pieces. Chapter 612 Gluttony. The Storm's barrage was impenetrable, and it easily killed all the soul spiders condensed by the soul fire. The headless general did not have this ability. He now pressed a bull demon's head on his head. The bull demon had divine power and amazing destructive power. He tore open the shell of the upper level monster with a sword and dealt some damage. But against the large number of small soul spiders, he was not as powerful as before. The headless general swung his broken sword and wiped out the soul spiders one by one, but many soul spiders still fell on the headless general. When these things fell on the headless general, they did not explode, but just burned, and a faint pale flame rose. The headless general did not suffer any damage, but in the cab of the 8 gates, Bei's face changed. He only felt a slight pain in his head, as if he was pricked by a needle. However, as the pale flames rose from the headless general's body, Bei suddenly felt extremely painful. Luo Yan's voice sounded in the communication channel. Quickly remove the weirdness. In the cockpit of the Bion, Luo Yan used the Wu Wang burning eyes to see a little bit of pale flame appear on Bei's human-shaped grey light. It seems that the soul fire directly hurt Bei by relying on the invisible connection between the weirdness and Bei. Bei made a prompt decision to remove the headless general, and suddenly a large number of soul spiders lost their target and were floating in the air. The storm rifle swept out dense barrages, strangling all the soul spiders floating in the air. At this moment, the spider ghost took advantage of the opportunity when the soul spider distracted Luo Yan's mind and forced the headless general to retreat. It immediately climbed up the mountain and wanted to escape across the mountains. However, as soon as it moved, Yan Wenbo's embroidered tiger rushed over. Although Yan Wenbo was usually sick, he was very fast when he controlled the mecha embroidered tiger at this time. The mecha with gorgeous outer armor and light body had long claws popping out on its hands and feet. The mecha jumped onto the cliff like a tiger, using its hands and feet to catch up with the spider ghost in a few moves. Then it pounced on the spider ghost's back. It clamped its legs together and swung its claws, leaving scars all over the spider ghost's body. The spider ghost wanted to get rid of the tiger, but it was not easy. At this time, the tiger jumped off the spider ghost again, and a storm of bullets sprayed from the foot of the mountain, catching up with the spider ghost. Bion. In the moment, when the spider ghost was entangled by the tiger, Luo Yan had already dealt with the soul spider, turned his gun, aimed at the spider ghost's insect limbs, and fired a burst of shots. The spider ghost immediately slipped, screamed, and rolled down the mountain. As soon as it fell to the ground, before it had time to get up, bone hands emerged from the spider ghost's body, which controlled the spider ghost and made it unable to move for a while. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Fidian rushed forward with a big stride. The long spear Langdon was as powerful as a dragon. It suddenly thrust upward, creating a dragon-shaped phantom, and lifted the huge body of the spider ghost into the air. The spider ghost's shell was shattered, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and Fidian's spear made a deep wound and almost split its spider abdomen in two. After repeated setbacks, there was no way to escape. The spider ghost was furious, and the dozens of large and small compound eyes on its head emitted a fascinating red light. It stretched out its human arm and grabbed in the air. Pale flames burst out from its palm and quickly turned into a long spear. The spider ghost turned the spear condensed with soul fire upside down and threw it at Fidian below. The power of the spear plus soul fire was not something Fidian could withstand. Moreover, the spider ghost's spear was extremely fast. Dugu Chanksin just thought to himself, oh no, and the soul fire spear had already arrived in front of Fidian. Just as it was about to penetrate the mecha, suddenly, a strange roar sounded in the field. The grey-white fire line dragged by the soul fire spear suddenly turned a corner and fell to the bion next to it. At this moment, a head appeared behind the bion mecha. It was shaped like a goat, and its two curved black horns were covered with mysterious patterns. Teoti. The goat head opened its mouth wide and accepted the soul fire spear with a smile. The mouth closed and then opened. From the big mouth, the soul fire spear returned to the original path and nailed into the body of the spider ghost, nailing it to the cliff. The spider ghost screamed and struggled desperately. It was obviously burned by the soul fire, and it was also in great pain. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, several eyes fell on Bion. The shadow of Teoti behind Bion dissipated with the wind. This is the gluttony feature in the transcendence mode. It shows the shadow of a glutton. After eating the opponent's attack, it can temporarily retain it and return it to the opponent when the time is right. Or, like Luo Yan now, it can be directly returned to the spider ghost. One hit succeeded. Bion raised the longsword dragon elephant, and the inscription on the longsword lit up. The spider ghost was immediately under heavy pressure and could not move. Luo Yang burst out his Yuanli and used the secret method KO and wheel to make the red gold sunlight covering the body dazzling. Then a golden rainbow light burst out, rising into the sky, along the cliff, and finally higher than the mountain peak, and into the clouds. Then you can see that where this rainbow light passes, the mountain is torn open with a smooth hole, and green smoke rises. The spider ghost is on this hole, and the body of the upper level giant beast is split into two parts and slowly slides down. In the cab of the embroidered tiger, Yan Wenbo raised his head and looked out of the panoramic window, only to see that the middle of this high mountain was torn open. It almost cut the mountain in half, and he couldn't help but laugh dryly. Zhao Luo, I haven't seen you for a while, and you've become more capable. Luo Yan silently put away his long sword and rifle and didn't respond. At this time, loud noises rang out in the cave, and then the heavy black thunder and the beast-like greedy wolf crawled out of the cave. At the same time, Heheo's team arrived and saw the spider ghost cut into two pieces, and they were secretly amazed. By the time they recovered the core from the spider ghost and returned to the underground city, it was already night. After parking the bion in the parking warehouse, Luo Yan walked out of the cab. Thank you for your hard work. The maintenance team greeted Luo Yan one after another, and then began to check the mecha and replenish consumables. Luo Yan took the elevator to the ground, took off his helmet, and saw Hiheo and Sujiyu coming over. Thank you this time, classmate Luo. Sujiyu took the initiative to say, and clenched his fist, hit his head, stuck out his tongue and said, the two of us have embarrassed the graduates. We were actually caught by the giant beast. If you, classmate Luo, hadn't arrived in time, Hiheo and I would probably have been eaten as lunch. Hiheo, don't you want to say something? Hiheo was silent, his eyes rolling around, as if he was holding back something. Luo Yan shook his head and said, I'm glad you're okay. I'll go first. Sujiyu rolled his eyes and kicked Hiheo lightly. Hiheo blushed and said, I know there is a hot pot restaurant in the city that is very good. I'm hungry. If you haven't eaten yet. Or, let's go eat hot pot. Luo Yan didn't answer yet. They had already come over. Hot pot? What hot pot? Chunking hot pot? I want to eat it. What? You are going to eat hot pot? How can we be left out? Yan Wenbo and Kang Shun came over and called to the silver-haired and arrogant Dugu Chanksin. Arzin, do you want to join us? No. I don't like hot pot, especially chunking hot pot. The silver-haired man turned around and left. Kang Shun whispered, actually, he can't eat spicy food. They exclaimed, no way. Heheo's mouth twitched slightly, and he shouted, aren't we going to eat hot pot? Let's go. What are you dawdling about here? Then he strode to the door of the warehouse. Bei cheered and pulled Luo Yan's arm. Student Luo, let's go eat hot pot. Chapter 613, Demonic Fungus City. In the morning, Luo Yan received a notice and came to the student union. When he walked into the meeting room, Liu Ruohan and Yang Leke had already arrived. Yang Leke put down a bottle of drink for Liu Ruohan, then ran over and pulled Luo Yan. I gathered the recruits this afternoon. Can you help me check them? Luo Yan nodded. Then, the student union members arrived one after another. A moment later, Wen Feng walked in, put down the cup of water with wolfberries, and coughed twice. Student Liu should have told everyone that the first grade will prepare for a forbidden area activity. At that time, you will be needed to accompany the guards. This is also an assessment for you. Zheng Shan raised his hand and asked, Teacher, since it is an assessment, there should be credits, right? Of course, we will talk about this later. Wen Feng smiled and pressed his palm, signaling everyone to be quiet, and then he continued. Originally, the most suitable place for the forbidden activities was Misty Canyon, but that forbidden place has disappeared. As for Gifa City, the dangerous area has been expanding recently. Several surrounding cities have discussed that they may have to clean up Gifa City. When the leader in the first team return from Pingayao later, they should take action in this regard. So in the short term, Gifa City is not suitable as a venue for activities. Finally, we chose this forbidden area. Wen Feng displayed some information on a projection screen. Luo Yan looked at it and saw some photos on the screen. The photos were taken from a high altitude, and it can be seen that this is a city. However, this city has been occupied by a large number of fungi. Moreover, these fungi have obviously mutated, and they all look particularly strong. Flesh brown scale small umbrella, white poison amanita, autumn helmet spore umbrella, orange cap amanita, hairy headed coprinus, bootier, disc fungus, ridged black egg nest, bleeding tooth fungus, etc. A large number of various fungi, toxic or non-toxic, were clustered together like a flower, like a sea of fungi, that submerged the city. Moreover, some of these plants were as tall as towering trees, growing out of dozens of high-rise buildings, opening like umbrellas, and shielding the high-rise buildings below. Some were not very tall, but they were dense in number, and they kept puffing out clouds and mist, one after another. Magic Fungus City. Forbidden Area number 13. Originally it was just a deserted city, but suddenly one day, a large number of fungi spread and mutated. Finally it developed into what it is now. What you are seeing now is the danger zone, which is the core area of Magic Fungus City and the place where the master of this city lives. Wen Feng opened another picture on the projection screen. In the picture, there was a hand-painted giant beast. It looked like a snake overall, but had a lizard's head and a large number of anteropods like a centipede. The giant beast was hovering over a building, supported by a large number of mutated fungi. The harp bug. The dominant beast. The characteristics we know for now are the strange sound and the rotten fog. The weaknesses are unknown. It likes shade, and is most active on cloudy or rainy days. On the contrary, it is most peaceful during the day, especially in summer. Wen Feng smiled and said, we chose to go at this time, because the weather will gradually get hotter, and the harp bug will burrow underground to avoid the heat. Therefore, going to the Magic Fungus City will be relatively safer than other forbidden areas. Of course, in addition to the harp bug, there are other giant beasts in the Magic Fungus City. They don't have the habit of avoiding the heat, so you need to protect them. I will send you more detailed information about the Magic Fungus City later. It should be noted that this information is only part of the forbidden area. Humans' understanding of the forbidden area is limited, and the forbidden area will undergo various changes over time. In short, even if we are active in the safe zone, it is only relatively safe. When the time comes, you can't take it lightly. Luo Yan and others nodded. The meeting ended. Everyone left one after another. After lunch at noon, Luo Yan and Yang Leke left the academy to inspect the people recruited by Yang Leke. On the way, Luo Yan took advantage of the time to look at the information sent by Wei Fenghua. These materials listed several points that need attention. One is the spore fog floating from the danger zone. Spore fog will form once or twice a month in the Magic Fungus City. Usually, spore fog only exists in the danger zone, but if there is a strong wind, it will be blown out of the danger zone by the wind. Spore fog is a mist formed by a large number of fungal spores. They are the means for the mutant fungi of the magic fungus city to reproduce. If you fall into the spore fog and do not take protection, the spores will enter the human body and parasitize it. After a period of time, it will explode, and a large number of fungi will grow out of the body. The host will not only die tragically, but also die ugly. The other is the insect tide. The environment in the magic fungus city is humid, causing a parasite on the kin insect to reproduce in large numbers. Once the number of parasites exceeds a certain level, the mutant fungi will parasitize the spores on the insects, and then drive them to move frantically, thus forming an insect tide. When the parasites die of exhaustion, the spores on their bodies will germinate and take root, thus spreading the mutant fungi. In response to this situation, the underground city near the magic fungus city will release incendiary agents into the core area every summer. First, to eliminate the fungus, and second, to reduce the number of parasites. In order to avoid the formation of an insect tide and expand the scope of the magic fungus city. In addition, there are other precautions, but at this time, the car stopped. Luoyan looked outside the car. It was a boxing gym. At this time, the boxing gym was standing or sitting, or in groups of 3 or 5, or sitting alone. There were men and women, a total of 17 or 18 people. All of them were recruited by Yang Li. What do you think the boss wants to do by waking us all up? I heard that he wants to test us. No way. He must be very worried about us. It's understandable. After all, in addition to money, the boss also promised to give us a batch of medicine for cultivation. Money is secondary. Medicine is the big deal, and it's hard to get resources for cultivation now. It's all because of the whole nation's cultivation. Amidst the discussion, footsteps suddenly came, and everyone looked towards the door and saw several figures walking in. The one walking in front, they naturally recognized it as the boss Yang Lixi. As for the young man with black hair and red eyes of the same age behind Yang Lixi, no one knew who he was. Yang Lixi led Luoyan to the hall and whispered, "These are the people, what do you think?" Luoyan said in a deep voice, "You can't tell by looking. Since you are worried, it's simple, I'll help you test these people. Those who can withstand my punch without falling to the ground will pass the test, how about it?" Yang Lixi said, "I'll listen to you." Chapter 614 Rebellion. When he entered the room, Luoyan had already used his Wuwang blazing eyes to scan the hall. The realm information of the people in the hall was clear to him at a glance. The one with the highest combat power was at the intermediate level 5, a man with a slightly iron blue complexion. The one with the lowest combat power was at the elementary level 3, and most of the others were between the elementary level 5 and the intermediate level 3. If you were to pick by combat power, you could just pick the intermediate level. But Luoyan knew that realm could only be used as a reference. Unless it was a watershed realm like the Tangsuan realm, the difference in realm would not explain too many problems. Whether the people here were useful, and how useful they were, would only be known in actual combat. Finally, in order to reflect fairness, Luoyan would suppress the realm to be equivalent to these people. Otherwise, if Luoyan went all out, no one here would be able to withstand his punch. Yang Lixi immediately announced this matter, and when these cultivators heard that Luoyan wanted to test their fists, they had different ideas. He's the boss's relative or friend. We can pass the test by taking a punch from him without falling. The boss has too much confidence in him, or he underestimates us. Who cares? It's just a punch. It's not a big deal. I think we should be careful. The boss is not stupid. He dares to let this guy come to test his fists. He must be very capable. Amidst the discussions, they stopped when they saw Yang Lixi raised his hand. Yang Lixi smiled and said, "Who will go first?" "I will." The one who spoke was a green-skinned man at the 5th level of the intermediate realm. It seemed that he was practicing some kind of martial arts, so his skin was slightly iron blue, which was very strange. Yang Lixi nodded and said to Luoyan, "His name is Jiuying, and he has the highest realm among these people." Luoyan nodded, circulated his energy, and suppressed his realm to the intermediate realm. He whispered to Jiuying, "Be careful." Jiuying laughed, "Come on. He silently practiced the martial arts, and his energy rose immediately, condensing into a green rhinoceros phantom behind him, and took the initiative to attack. He rushed forward, swung his fist, and a green shadow was thrown at Luo Yan's face. Luo Yan had no expression on his face, raised his arm, twisted his fist, and threw a simple punch. The two fists collided in an instant, and a muffled sound came from the boxing gym. Luo Yan's arm shook, and Jiuying jumped back. He retreated more than 10 steps in a row before stopping, and then put one hand behind his back. In a place where Luo Yan couldn't see, Jiuying shook his hand, and felt a dull pain in his finger bones. The fist bump with Luo Yan just now made him suspect that he had hit a mountain with his fist, and it felt difficult to shake. He secretly thought it was amazing, and couldn't help but look at Luo Yan a few more times. Luo Yan put his hand down and nodded, saying, "Passed. Next." Luo Yan tested his fists with the cultivators in the hall one by one. No matter who it was, no matter whether the opponent was defending or attacking, he would punch them with a simple and unpretentious punch. After a round, including Jiuying, there were only 8 people who could withstand Luo Yan's punch without falling to the ground. So Yang Lekei announced on the spot that these 8 people would go to Qingyang City tomorrow, and the others were eliminated. However, those who were eliminated received a gift box prepared by Yang Lekei in advance, which contained 5 bottles of tranquilizer as a kind of compensation. 2 days later, in the evening, a modified RV stopped at a hillside covered with flowers and grass. Luo Yan looked down the hill and saw the coyote camp. He pulled a small mecha from the underground city and planned to put it in the coyote camp, then overwrite the usage permissions and give it to Liu or others. Now he can no longer use this mecha. This thing is not much better than paper for the strong in Tangsuan realm. Luo Yan can't use it against the advanced realm. So after reaching the advanced realm, he basically didn't use this small mecha. Instead of keeping it in the warehouse and gathering dust, it is better to take it to the camp. It is already mid-April. Although it is not summer yet, the temperature is already a bit hot. Logically speaking, at this time of year, the camp should be very lively during the day. But now, Luo Yan saw that the camp was too quiet. Especially some buildings that were being built were not poured in time, but left aside. Luo Yan keenly felt that the atmosphere in the camp was a bit strange. Could it be Huang Quan? This thought flashed through Luo Yan's mind. However, there has been no news from Luozi. I guess Huang Quan should not make any big moves recently. Of course, it is also possible that Luozi has discovered that what he gave him to eat was just a candy. In short, if you want to know what happened in the camp, you can only sneak in and spy. Luo Yan parked the car in a hidden place, took grass leaves and branches, and made a good disguise. Then he put on a mask, which he bought newly. The original one was lost in the chaos of Qingyang City and disappeared. After putting on the mask, Luo Yan put on his cloak, took the Huan Long and Zuyin double swords, used the secret method Ki Aolan. Luo Yan moved stealthily and touched the camp. It was dark. Dim lights were on in the camp. A manhole cover shook and rose slightly. Under the cover, a pair of red eyes looked out. The last time Huan Quan attacked, under Liu's command, most of the underground waterways were blown up. But there is still a small part of the underground network that can be used. Luo Yan used that part of the underground network to sneak into the depths of the camp and came to the vicinity of the main building of the camp. There are fewer people. And Luo Yan saw a mecha parked next to the main building not far away. It was sent from the Yinwen base and originally belonged to a mecha under Liuqi. Why do they park the mecha near the main building? Luo Yan frowned and then saw an off-road vehicle coming from a distance. He immediately put down the manhole cover and retracted into the vertical ladder, but opened the Wuwang burning eyes, and his sight immediately penetrated the ground and fell on the off-road vehicle. Several people jumped off the off-road vehicle. All of them were big men wearing camouflage field uniforms with a variety of equipment. But these people did not look like soldiers in the camp. Luo Yan casually read the information of one of them. Peng, 26 years old, Hydra. Gang organization? I haven't heard of such an organization around here. Luo Yan frowned slightly in the mask and then heard a voice coming from outside. Damn it, such a big camp is left to us brothers to guard. I'm so tired. Don't complain, boss and Bald Yubei go catch them. If those people are not caught, there will be endless troubles. In comparison, it's already very easy for us to just watch the camp and prevent those people in the water prison from running away. Before the bald guy started the rebellion, he swore that it was foolproof, but the mad dog named Yang Heo took advantage of the chaos and ran away, and took away the girl who was said to be the student of the Red Devil. Yubei's face is really lost. Luo Yan's pupils dilated slightly. Although it was just a few words, Luo Yan had pieced together a vague outline. In short, Yubei rebelled. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 615 Kyanki Blood Essence. I don't know what reason he betrayed me. However, there are more important things to do now. Obviously, the Coyote camp has been controlled, and the mecha near the building is a force guarantee. In addition, there are two situations in the camp at present. One is that someone is locked in the water prison. Luo Yan thought that it should be Liu and others. The other is that Yang Heo and Yang Tao have left the base, but are currently being hunted by the Hydra gang and Yubei. After Luo Yan calmly analyzed, he quickly made a decision. On the ground. You guys, go over there and take a look. Leo Zio and Zio Hao, you guys follow me to the water prison. A man in his 20s with a capable look said. He is the carder of the Hydra gang, Hipeng. After Hipeng arranged the work, he took the two away and entered the building. The others dispersed and walked around according to Hipeng's instructions. However, now that the camp is under control, these people are not so focused. After leaving, they went in groups of 3 or 2, each looking for a hidden corner to smoke and play. The boss said that, if we get this deal, we won't have to worry about anything this year. That's right. Even though this camp is not as big as ours, there are actually 2 mechs in the warehouse. They are worth a lot of money if we dismantle them and sell them, not to mention the other valuable things. If it weren't for the bald guy surnamed Yu, it wouldn't be so easy for us to get in. In a hidden place at the corner of the building, 2 Hydra gang members, one standing and the other squatting, were smoking. As they were puffing out smoke, a hand gently reached out from the shadow behind the standing gang member. It grabbed his soft throat and pulled hard, and a stream of blood spurted out and sprinkled on the head of the man squatting below. He felt his scalp getting hot, and when he reached out to touch it, he saw that his palm was full of blood, and a blade stabbed out of his mouth. When the blade was retracted, the gang member suddenly fell to the ground. Then the 2 bodies were dragged into the shadow and thrown into the sewer. After Luo Yan dealt with the 2 gang members, he turned over and entered the building through the window wearing a mask. The Wu Wang Zuan wept. Probably because of the pursuit of Yang Heo, Yubei and the Hydra gang took most of the people away. There were not many people who could move freely in the building, and they were all members of the Hydra gang. Luo Yan did not rush to act. He first used the ability of Natural Resonator to feel the existence of the mecha outside the building. It happened that the driver was not in the mecha and did not use the empathy system. Luo Yan resonated with the mecha quite easily. As usual, some pictures flashed in his mind. It seemed that he saw scenes from ancient times and the tragic battle between humans and beasts. These pictures flashed and disappeared, and the system of the mecha outside the building showed that a signal was online. But Luo Yan did not start the mecha, maintaining the empathy with the mecha. After a while of exploration, he found the location of the water dungeon. The water dungeon is located in the basement of the building. This building was converted from a shopping mall, and the water dungeon is located on the underground floor. At this time, Hipeng and 2 of his men came out of the dungeon. The 3 of them were obviously covered with some water stains. Walking in the passage, Hipeng's face was gloomy. These people are really stubborn. Even in this situation, they still refuse to surrender. Behind him, an older man laughed and said, they are very loyal to the man called Red Ghost. In this era, people like them are rare. Old Zio, don't be funny. What loyalty? They just want better conditions. If you don't believe me, wait until the mad dog surnamed Yang dies and see if they are still stubborn. Another younger man with very short hair said next to him. He Peng wiped his hands with a handkerchief and said, "Okay, stop talking. He stopped suddenly. In the passage ahead, at some point, a figure appeared. It was a man in a cloak, wearing a hood. He walked over without saying a word. He Peng immediately said, "Stop, who are you?" The person who came was naturally Luo Yan. Luo Yan turned a deaf ear to his words, walked without stopping, and at the same time, practiced the blood transformation sutra. Suddenly, a blood-colored haze appeared in the passage. The newcomer is not friendly. Without Jia Peng's order, Lao Zio and Zio Hao raised their rifles, but before they could fire, a black shadow crossed their throats. Sword shadow. Blood spurted out of their necks at the same time, and they retreated again and again, covering their necks. Seeing this, He Peng took out a bottle of potion from his pocket. A faint green light was surging in the potion. He sucked up all the gas in the potion in one breath, and threw it on the ground. At this time, He Peng's body crackled, his body swelled slightly, and his eyes suddenly became ferocious. Luo Yan was slightly surprised. Under the Wu Wang burning eyes, the potion just now showed some information. Cyan Ki blood, degraded, a potion made by biotechnology using the essence of blood extracted from Cyan Ki blood essence, can temporarily increase strength and physical strength after use, but will become violent and bloodthirsty, lasting for an hour, and will be extremely weak after the end. Cyan Ki blood essence. This is the second blood essence that Luo Yan encountered after the dragon blood essence. However, what He Peng used was not the Cyan Ki blood essence, but a potion made by extracting the blood essence and using biotechnology. And the effect is not a little bit worse than Luo Yan's dragon blood essence. Even if there are various shortcomings, a cadre of the Hydra gang is equipped with the Cyan Ki blood potion, which explains a lot of problems. The Hydra gang is definitely not an ordinary surface organization. Where does the surface organization have the scientific research power to produce the Cyan Ki blood potion? In addition, it also indirectly explains why the Coyote camp can fall so easily. With the Cyan Ki blood potion, the combat power of the equipper will be greatly increased. Although this bonus is not enough in Luo Yan's eyes, it is enough to suppress Liu and others. After using the Cyan Ki blood potion, He Peng drew out a long knife and rushed towards Luo Yan violently. A few dragon scales suddenly floated behind Luo Yan, and the rapid walk turned into a mad rush. The passage was filled with blood red glow and flashing knife lights. Two figures crossed each other. Luo Yan continued to walk towards the water dungeon room without stopping. He Peng stopped and opened his mouth. Wait. Then his body was torn into pieces. Water dungeon. Liu, Liuc, Wenzhou and others were locked to the wall. They were all wet below their chests and had been soaked in water for more than 3 days. They were all pale and looked exhausted. At this time, they saw the interrogation window light up and thought He Peng had gone and come back. Liu snorted and said, "Don't waste your energy. You can kill me, but Mr. Red Ghost has been kind to me. A man will die for his friend. I will not surrender." Chapter 616. Sacrifice for the cause. After Liu finished speaking, he did not hear anyone talking behind the interrogation window, but the water pipes in the room began to work. The water level in the cell dropped rapidly, and after a while, all the water was pumped away, and the pump stopped. Then the door opened, and Liu and his friend saw a figure walking in. A cloak and a mask, and a pair of red eyes behind the mask. They all exclaimed, "Mr. Chigi?" Luo Yan nodded, "It's me." Then he let Liu and his friends down. They had been hung for 3 days and soaked in water, and their physical strength was almost exhausted. For a while, they could not even stand steadily. Luo Yan did not mind the trouble and carried them one by one to the interrogation room. He also found some towels for them to wipe themselves and then asked, "What's going on?" Liu and his friends felt unreal, and it was not until now that they were sure that they were not dreaming. The Chigi is really back. Liu smiled bitterly and said, "Mr. Chigi, I failed in my duty." Liuc hurriedly said, "Mr. Chigi, this is none of Liu's business. You Bei had your warrant. Who would have thought that guy would actually team up with outsiders to invade the camp? When Luo Yan asked Yu Bei to leave that day, he did give him something around him as a warrant to gain Liu's trust." Hearing this, he nodded. "I don't mean to blame Liu. Li Yu, continue. Li Yu then told Li Yu everything that had happened in the past few days. It turned out that not long ago, Yu Bei led a convoy to the coyote camp and showed Luo Yan's warrant to gain Li Yu's trust. But unexpectedly, on the night when Yu Bei entered the camp, this bald guy quickly betrayed and joined forces with the Hydra gang. With internal and external cooperation, they quickly controlled the camp. Li Yu said this and looked up at Luo Yan. The bald guy said, "Mr. Chigi, you died in Pingyao City and will never come back." We naturally don't believe it, but unfortunately they have a strange potion. After taking it, the combat power will increase dramatically. We are no match for them. Luo Yan suddenly realized. It seems that the bald guy thought that he died in Pingyao City, so he dared to betray him. Luo Yan was not surprised about this. The bald guy was not a good person. He had been honest and dutiful before. It was because I suppressed him. It was strange that he thought I was dead and was obedient. Luo Yan looked at Wenzhou again. "Why did you come to the camp?" Wenzhou said with a look of grievance. "Master, I was tricked out. The bald man called me here in the name of Li Yu. I thought Li Yu had something difficult to discuss with me. As a result, I was not careful for a moment and fell into his trap. It was also my carelessness. I didn't expect that Yu Bei would dare to do this." Luo Yan looked around again. "Where is Zhang Yi?" Wenzhou's face darkened and shook his head. "Zhang Yi is dead." At that time, Yu Bei temporarily controlled the situation, but Zhang Yi fought to the death, which successfully created an opportunity for Yang Hao and Miss Yang Tao. Alas, he died too tragically. The fake Taoist shook his head and sighed. Luo Yan's mind flashed the appearance of Weni Zhang. He had originally promised that he could leave after serving him for 3 years. Unexpectedly, he sacrificed his life in less than a year. Luo Yan clenched his hands in his cloak and then said, "How are you? Can you move?" Yu Bei and the Hydra gang have gone to hunt down Yang Hao. Now the camp is weak. It's a good opportunity to take back the camp. I have also controlled the mecha outside the building. The rest are just some minions. Li Yu stood up and nodded. "No problem. Then I'll leave the camp to you. I'll go find Yang Hao." After Luo Yan finished speaking, he flashed out of the water prison. When passing by the pool of blood and flesh of Hipeng, he whispered, "It's too hasty to kill. If Hipeng is still alive, he can force the Hydra gang to tell him the current location. However, Luo Yan has other ways." Bang, bang, bang. The knock on the door startled Jiuying. He was lying on a woman and trying hard. He was at a critical moment, but he was interrupted by someone. He suddenly got angry. He roared, "What are you doing? I told you not to disturb me. Are you deaf?" Someone outside coughed dryly. "Mr. Jiuying, I'm sorry, but the mech looks like it's out of control. We don't know what to do, so we can only come to you." Jiuying was stunned. He was the only mech master besides Yu Bei. Yu Bei went to hunt down Yang Hao and asked him to stay in the camp to guard it. He saw that there was nothing unusual in the camp, and he couldn't stand the loneliness, so he found a woman named Zhao Zuan in the camp to relieve his sexual desire. Now that he heard that the mech was out of control, he didn't care about anything else and hurriedly put on his pants and ran out with his upper body naked. When he ran out of the building, he saw that his mech seemed to raise its arms from time to time and turn its head slightly. Why is this happening? Is there a problem with the sensor? That's not right. I'm not online. Jiuying hurriedly ran to the mech. Fortunately, the malfunction seemed to be only temporary and the mech became obedient again. But at this time, the rifle in the mech's hand suddenly pointed at him, and then a flash of fire flashed from the muzzle. Suddenly, a pile of dirt exploded on the ground behind Jiuying, and the 2 Hydra gang members following him were killed by the mecha with one shot. Jiuying was startled and lay on the ground with his head in his hands. Then he saw a figure in front of him. He raised his head and saw a man in a cloak and a mask, holding a long knife from his cloak and holding it on his neck. "Where is Yu Bei now?" Asterisk 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 a sneeze. Yu Bei sneezed, and the bald man pinched his nose and snorted. "Is it possible that the man surnamed Yang is hiding in here?" Not far in front of him was an abandoned factory building. The factory was surrounded by weeds, and it was dark inside. It didn't look like there were people hiding there. Why, you still don't trust my people? Behind the bald man, a man in a black military-style long windbreaker smiled coldly. Yubei glanced at him. I don't believe you. But I believe Mr. Lin. But I'm quite surprised, Captain Kyojin. Why, your Jiuying tribe has ignored the development of the underground city forces and turned to development on the ground. You even set up a surface organization. You are really something. The man in the black windbreaker sneered. Stop talking nonsense, Yubei. Do your job well. Minister Lin thinks highly of you, so he invited you to join our Jiuying tribe. You're so good. You left us alone for so long before you gave in. Originally, if you were willing to give in, I would have thought you had some ability. In the end, it was because the red ghost died in Pingyao that you dared to do it. Haha. Yubei laughed. Captain Kyojin, you don't understand. The red ghost is scary. If he hadn't died, I wouldn't dare to betray him, even if I had 10 guts. Chapter 617 Confidence. Boss, they are outside. In the abandoned factory, a grey-faced young man hid by the window, observing the distance with night vision goggles. Yang Heo, who had just had his men bandage their wounds, raised his head and said, keep watching them. Lao Jiang, Xiao Tai will take over in 2 hours. You go to sleep now. Okay. A bearded man fell asleep, and soon, he began to breathe long and evenly. Hatred flashed in Yang Heo's eyes. Lao Jiang and Xiao Tai, these were his loyal subordinates who had followed him for a long time. In addition to them, Yang Heo originally had some subordinates like him. But several people died when they escaped from the camp, and some more died on the way here. Now there are only these 2 subordinates left. Thinking of this, Yang Heo wished he could go out and chop off that bald head right now. He looked at a girl curled up beside a pillar not far away. Yang Heo said in a deep voice, Taozi, you too, take a nap to recuperate. Yang Tao raised her head. They said the teacher is dead. Mr. Yang, do you believe it? Yang Heo sneered. It's just a broken mask. It doesn't mean anything. Yang Tao whispered, but I recognize it. It's the teacher's mask. Yubei was able to get that mask and betrayed the teacher, which in itself means a lot of problems. Taozi. Yang Heo shook his mechanical prosthesis. Do you know who cut it off? Yang Tao blinked. It was the teacher. That's right. Yang Heo raised the corner of his mouth and said, a person who can easily cut off one of my arms will not die so easily. If Mr. Chigi knew that his students had so little confidence in him, he would probably be very sad, right? Yang Tao was stunned for a moment, then raised her little hand and patted her face. Mr. Yang is right. I have to believe in the teacher. Then I'll go to sleep. Wake me up when it's my turn. She fell asleep. Yang Heo smiled, and then his face became gloomy again. What are you waiting for, you? Are you planning to drain our energy and kill us without any effort? You wish. Even if I want to die, I'd like to bite off a few pieces of flesh from you. In the wilderness, Yubei put down the telescope and looked at the man in the black windbreaker next to him. Are your men ready? Don't let Yang wait too long. The leader of the Hydra gang, Kyojin, chuckled and said, why are you in such a hurry? We have completed the encirclement. A cooked duck. Are you afraid that it will fly away? Now they are fighting a desperate battle, and they will definitely resist fiercely if we fight. Will it not be easier if we wait for them to consume some energy first and then take action? Yubei said. Why are there so many troubles? We all know that they are hiding in that factory, so why don't we just use artillery shells to deal with them? Don't say that your Hydra gang doesn't have weapons like rocket launchers. Kyojin straightened his clothes and said, of course we have them, but do you know how much a shell costs? Are you paying for it or me? If you are willing to pay for it, I don't care. Yubei smiled and ignored it. Kyojin continued, do you know how much each of those cannon fodder surrounding the factory is worth? Less than 1,000. Some are even willing to fight for a few hundred yuan. Why? Because human lives on the surface are worthless. As long as these people are given a gun, they can fill the enemy's life for me. Besides, Yang is tired and hungry now. Why should I waste money? Didn't you think that we can't develop forces on the surface? Now I can tell you that you don't know that the cost of developing forces in the underground city is too high. The cost of developing a force in the underground city can be used to develop several times the manpower on the surface. On the surface, human lives are very cheap. Yubei laughed and said, what cost and benefit? I don't understand these. Kyojin smiled and said, I can see it. Then, he was about to issue a combat order. Suddenly, the ground shook slightly. Kyojin and Yubei immediately found something unusual. Not long after, the vibration of the ground became more and more obvious. A moment later, a beam of light was seen sweeping in the darkness in the distance. Behind the light, mottled armor and glowing energy nodes were faintly visible. Mecha. Kyojin and Yubei looked at each other in bewilderment. Neither of them had expected a mecha to appear at this time. They had not yet figured out which faction the mecha belonged to. The mecha opened fire. As soon as the rifle dedicated to the behemoth was raised, the muzzle sprayed flames, and shells that could crush cars fell one after another at the feet of the mecha. Rifle bullets, which were as powerful as the main guns of battleships, rubbed the air in the dim night, pulling out bright red lines of fire. Passing by the convoy of Kyojin and others, one off-road vehicle after another was swept to pieces. The Hydra gang members in the car didn't even have time to scream, and they were blown into pieces under this violent firepower. Kyojin and Yubei immediately rushed out and hid in a pile of rocks in the distance. At this time, Kyojin poked his head out to look at the mecha in the distance and suddenly recognized that the mecha was brought by Yubei. Isn't that your mecha? What's going on? Kyojin no longer had the composure he had just now. Under the strafing of the mecha, his convoy had been destroyed, and a large number of gang members died under this fierce firepower. No matter how cheap the lives of people on the surface are, they are money. And among them, some are elites that Kyojin has painstakingly cultivated. With the death of these people, Kyojin lost not only money, but also effort and time. Yubei also recognized it at this time. It was a mecha that he left in the camp and was controlled by Jiuying. Is this guy Jiuying crazy? Yubei took out a communicator, tuned to a specific channel, and then shouted, Jiuying, what the hell are you crazy about? Stop it. On the other side, the mecha stopped strafing. Seeing this, Yubei breathed a sigh of relief. He jumped out of the pile of rocks and shouted with the communicator, Jiuying, what's wrong with you? Didn't I ask you to stay in the camp? Why are you running here? Are you fucking mute? Speak. The ground was still shaking. The mecha came over. It stopped nearby. Kyojin also came out from the pile of rocks at this time. Looking at the countless dead and injured gang members, he grabbed Yubei by the collar. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, I will not let you go. At this time, the mecha half knelt on the ground. Then the door of the cab opened, and a figure walked out. Yubei immediately shouted, Jiuying, what's going on? The figure did not respond, but got off the mecha, jumped a few times, and landed on the ground. In the light on the chest of the mecha, a person wearing a cloak, whose facial features could not be seen clearly due to the backlight, walked slowly. Yubei used his hand to block the light slightly and squinted slightly. Suddenly, from the shadow of the figure's dark face, he saw a pair of red eyes. The bald man's heart beat violently. Chapter 618 Killing. What's going on? Yang Tao touched a window and carefully looked outside the factory and saw a mecha. Just now, there was a commotion outside, with explosions and screams. Xiaota, who had been paying attention to the outside, witnessed the whole process of the mecha firing and bombing the Hydra gang. Yang Heo and his friends naturally lost their sleep and got up to see what was going on. The bearded old Jiuying whispered, that's the mecha brought by Yubei. What's going on? Is there an internal conflict between him and the Hydra gang? Yang Heo frowned. Analysis was not his strong point, and he could not come to a conclusion. He simply said, don't worry about it. Now we can take advantage of the chaos to break out. Taozi, Xiaotai, come here. Yang Tao immediately returned to Yang Heo's side. Follow me. Yang Heo made a gesture and took a few people out of the factory where they were hiding. When they came near the vehicle, gunshots rang out and bullets fell on the ground not far away, blowing out a gap the size of a teacup. It was Kyojin's gang members who surrounded the factory and began to act. They were ordered to monitor the factory area, but because the convoy was attacked, Kyojin did not give the next order. Now seeing that Yang Heo and his men wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape, a small leader in charge of commanding this team decisively issued an attack order. Immediately, the Hydra gang rushed out from all directions. They were about to surround and kill Yang Hao and his men. Yang Hao raised his eyebrows, his eyes flashed with ferocity, and shouted, "I will lead the way, you follow." He jumped into an off-road vehicle, started it, and then stepped on the accelerator, and rushed to the east side of the factory area. This was the opposite direction of Kyojin's convoy. In the car, Yang Hao picked up a rifle, and placed it on the broken windshield. He almost lay on the steering wheel, firing the rifle, and madly shot at the enemies blocking the road. Yang Tao and the other two jumped into another off-road vehicle, and followed Yang Hao. Xiao Tai drove, Liu Jiuying and Yang Tao each used a rifle, to cover Yang Hao in front. Seeing this, the Hydra gang's small leader took out a bottle of Kyanki blood potion and drained it. His body immediately swelled up, roared, and rushed forward. He jumped onto Yang Hao's off-road vehicle, raised the sword in his hand in the air, and chopped it down at Yang Hao's head. Yang Hao turned his head to avoid it, and the sword scraped a piece of hair and dandruff on the back of his head. He burst out his energy, held the steering wheel steadily with one hand, and pulled back the rifle with the other hand, and shot the small leader's thigh. If he hadn't sucked the Kyanki blood, the small leader would definitely not be able to stand up after this shot. But in addition to improving people's physical fitness, the potion also reduced the pain. The small leader swung his legs and snorted, but did not fall down. The long sword was swung horizontally, and swept towards Yang Hao's neck. Yang Hao fell on the steering wheel, and the rifle was raised while firing, and immediately a line of fire swept across the small leader. The kinetic energy of the bullet made the small leader's body sway, and blood splattered, but the opponent was still alive. Moreover, the little leader seemed to be aroused, and he was about to pounce with his long knife. Yang Hao leaned down, and arched his body, pushing the little leader over, and falling on the hood of the off-road vehicle. The little leader grabbed the steering wheel with one hand to stabilize himself, and wanted to stab Yang Hao with the long knife in the other hand. Yang Hao smiled coldly, and the rifle was already pointed at the little leader's face. The latter's face finally changed. Then the muzzle sprayed flames, and the bullet penetrated the little leader's head. Bang bang bang. After a few shots, the little leader's head burst into pieces, and the body rolled off the engine cover. The off-road vehicle ran over it again, and a wheel mark immediately appeared on the little leader's body. Damn, these guys have become crazier than me after using that damn potion. As he spoke, Yang Hao stepped on the accelerator, and the off-road vehicle crashed through a piece of barbed wire and drove out of the factory area. After driving out of the factory area, he looked into the distance, and saw a figure in a cloak walking quickly towards Yubei Kyojin under the light of the mecha. Yang Hao said ha, and called out with some doubt, "Mr. Chigi?" "That's right. That man was Liu Yan." In the Coyote camp, Liu Yan used the ability of natural resonance to control the mecha, causing the mecha to behave out of control, and luring out the mecha master Xiangguang. After getting Yubei's coordinates, Liu Yan drove the mecha to come, and just now, he used a burst of shooting to knock down the Hydra gang's convoy. Now only Kyojin and Yubei are left. At this time, Yubei was shocked when he saw Liu Yan's iconic eyes, and stepped back repeatedly. "Chigi. It's Chigi. Why aren't you dead yet?" Not long after he left Pingyao that day, he heard that Pingyao had changed drastically, and many people died in the city. Not long after, he got a bloody and incomplete mask. Yubei recognized that it was the mask worn by Chigi. Therefore, he believed that Liu Yan had died in Pingyao City. Now seeing it, it really felt like seeing a ghost, and the bald man was shocked. Kyojin snorted and said, "It doesn't matter if you're not dead. A higher level realm scared you like this. I really don't know what the minister wants a waste like you for." After that, Kyojin took out a bottle of Kyanki blood from his pocket. After absorbing the potion, his whole body crackled, and his body swelled. Then he circulated the power of the technique, and a silver-striped black snake shadow suddenly appeared behind Kyojin. At this time, Liu Yan looked at Kyojin, and got the words Captain of Team 1 of the Black Witch Jiuying department. He was a little surprised. This Hydra gang turned out to be an organization of the Jiuying department. Although he was surprised, Liu Yan did not stop. And seeing Kyojin using Kyanki blood, Liu Yan was not polite, and started the dragon transformation posture. In an instant, Liu Yan's body was covered with dragon scales. The whites of his eyes were stained with ink, and a golden crack appeared in his red pupils. The horns of death rose, the claws of disaster opened, and the blood pupils appeared. When Liu Yan used boiling blood, it was as if a furnace was burning inside him, and the mighty energy was surging and roaring in his blood vessels. The cloak expanded and lifted slightly. Liu Yan exuded a monstrous ferocity, and rushed towards Kyojin like a humanoid beast. Kyojin didn't have time to think about it, and used all his strength to swing his fist fiercely, bursting out a wave of air, and blasting towards Liu Yan. Liu Yan fought with Kyojin with fists. Bang! When the fists hit each other, the ground under Kyojin's feet shattered, and the rocks on both sides were also affected, all shattered and exploded. Kyojin screamed even more, and saw an arm uncontrollably raised to the sky, and then the palm exploded, bones, fingers, and flesh flying all over the sky. Then the arm exploded section by section, blood mist filled the air, and meat scraps flew. Even a few pieces of bloody oil skin fell on Yubei's face. Yubei opened his eyes wide in horror, and saw the red ghost's cloak lifted up, and an arm stretched out from the cloak like lightning. The 5 claws on the hand, which emitted a demonic red light, easily pierced through Kyojin's body, and broke out from his back. There was one more thing on the 5 claws. A beating heart. The claws closed, and the heart broke into pieces. Liu Yan pulled back his arm again, and blood mist gushed out from Kyojin's chest behind him. Chapter 619. Restoring order. One punch broke his arm, one claw dug out his heart. In 2 moves, he killed a high-level cultivator. But Liu Yan didn't feel very happy. Indeed, now that the dragon transformation posture has become a system, the combat power has increased dramatically. Liu Yan felt that with this posture, he could fight even against the Tangxuan realm. If he met Gaolin again at this time, he would not be as embarrassed as last time. However, this posture made him feel very uncomfortable. Even though he had tried his best to suppress the manic wildness and malice of the dragon blood essence, Liu Yan still became violent unconsciously during the attack. He even used the brutal and cruel fighting method of digging out the heart. He felt like he had turned into a ferocious beast. He felt that, if he used this posture for a long time, his humanity would probably be eaten away by the fierce beast nature of the dragon blood essence. It would be better not to use it in the future. After making this decision, Liu Yan discovered that the blood pupil on his chest was absorbing the blood energy from Kyojin. From Kyojin's body, to his scattered heart fragments and the blood and flesh splashed around, and even the 2 pieces of oily skin on Yubei's face. All of them exuded a dense dark red blood, rolled back, poured into the blood pupil, and plunged into the vast sea of mottled blood. Liu Yan's mind moved, and the blood in the blood pupil boiled. The part belonging to Kyojin was extracted and separated, and began to be refined, transforming from blood to blood essence. This process did not seem to be achieved overnight. Liu Yan no longer paid attention. Release the transformation into a dragon posture. At the moment when the last dragon scale disappeared, Liu Yan seemed to hear the unwilling roar of the lizard dragon, and then his spirit suddenly lightened, becoming relaxed and lively. Liu Yan then looked at Yubei. Yubei had been scared out of his wits. He saw with his own eyes that Kyojin, a captain of a high level, could not even survive 2 moves in Liu Yan's hands. He was cut off his arm and heart. He was a mid-level realm, and he was not even qualified to fill the gaps between people's teeth. He fell to the ground and shouted, "Mr. Chigi, spare me. I was blinded by lard and confused for a moment, so I did these stupid things. It's also the fault of Lin Yuanfang from the Jiuying tribe. He asked someone to use your mask to deceive me. Mr. Chigi, please give me another chance. I swear, you will never do these stupid things again." Liu Yan said coldly, "When did you get involved with Lin Yuanfang? Besides, I remember that a nano bomb was buried in your body, which will explode when I die. You are not dead, which means I'm still alive. Why do you think I'm dead?" Yubei did not dare to hide anything and told everything. It turned out that after Liu Zio died, not long after Liu Yan left the Yinwen base, Lin Yuanfang from the Jiuying tribe had contacted the bald man. He invited the bald man to join the Jiuying tribe and promised to give him a set of advanced exercises and a captain position. In addition, To show his sincerity, Lin Yuanfang also took the nanobomb out of Liu Bei's body through surgery. But at that time, Liu Yang used the power of killing Liu Xiao to make Liu Bei dare not have any evil thoughts. Even if Lin Yuanfang had done him a favor, he just used words to delay time. Until some time ago, Pingyao underground city changed dramatically. Lin Yuanfang sent someone to deliver Liu Yan's mask, and Liu Bei thought that Chigi died in the underground city. Only then did he waver and agreed to Lin Yuanfang's invitation and borrowed Liu Yan's hand order to gain the trust of Li Yu and others. Then he cooperated with Kyojin's Hydra gang to control the camp. Now the Coyote camp is different from the past. There are 2 old-fashioned mechs, mecha instructors like Fei, and other supplies. The gold content of the camp is huge. After taking over this camp, Liu Bei's strength immediately increased. But unexpectedly, as soon as Liu Yan came back, their painstaking management collapsed. After telling everything, Liu Bei looked at Liu Yan carefully, waiting for Liu Yan's judgment. After listening to it, Liu Yan silently remembered it, and then said, "It's human nature to have evil thoughts." After hearing that the boss is dead, seeing that Liu Yan seemed to have room for maneuver, Liu Bei hurriedly said, yes, Mr. Chigi, I was just confused for a moment. I swear, I won't be stupid again." At this time, almost ruthless words floated out of the mask. But, once unfaithful, 100 times unforgivable. Then, a knife was thrown out from the cloak and fell to the ground. Liu Bei raised his head. Liu Yan looked at him and said, "It seems that for your honesty just now, I will leave you the last bit of dignity. Kiss yourself." The bald man was hit hard, and he looked at the Huan Lang on the ground in a daze. He smiled bitterly, reached out and slowly pulled out the long knife. Suddenly, his eyes were bloodshot. Yuan Li burst out, and the long knife was raised. "Fuck your dignity," Liu Bei roared, struggling to his death. As soon as he finished speaking, Liu Yan's cloak was lifted up, and a torrent of blood burst out from it, as if it was going to drown him. It seemed that there was no other color between heaven and earth, except this blood color. Viscous blood spurted out from Liu Bei's eyes, and his knife had not yet fallen. His throat, chest, wrists, etc. Blood fountain gushed out. Several knife lights only then quietly retracted their fangs. Combat skills, chasing the wind and shadows. Liu Bei's body had not yet fallen, but Liu Yan's blood drink had already returned to its sheath. Then he turned to one side and watched 2 off-road vehicles approaching from afar. The car stopped nearby. Someone in the car in front shouted, "Mr. Chigi, it's you?" A petite figure jumped out of the other car and then floated like a stream of green smoke and threw herself into Liu Yan's arms. "Starfruit." The girl raised her dirty little face, her eyes red. "Teacher, I thought I would never see you again." Liu Yan smiled in the mask and reached out to rub the girl's head. When it was dawn, Liu Yan, Yang Hao and others returned to the camp. In the camp, all the Hydra gang members and Liu Bei's men had been killed. The bodies were hung outside the camp for public display, attracting a lot of flies. Arriving at the camp, Liu Yan met Li Yu and others. Li Yu's spirit was much better, and there was some blood on his face. Seeing Liu Yan and Yang Hao coming back, he smiled and went forward to greet them. Then, the camp returned to normal. Fei's mecha class continued to carry out teaching work. Li Yu, Yang Hao and others, as the backbone of the camp, became Fei's first batch of students under Liu Yan's instruction. Liu Yan stayed in the camp for a few days, sat in on 1 or 2 classes, and roughly understood Fei's teaching method. His method is very different from that of the academy. In addition to imparting knowledge about mechs, the academy also has other subjects. For example, pharmacy, such as various common sense. But Fei only focuses on the content of mechs. In this way, the knowledge points are concentrated, and there are several mechs in the camp for practice. It won't be long before Li Yu and others can practice. Liu Yan hoped that they could learn to drive the mecha when the Black Witch and Huan Quan went to war. In addition, he spent 2 days test driving Liu Xiao's butcher. The butcher had been repaired by crossing Qinggang, and the engineer had made some adjustments to the performance of the mecha under limited conditions, improving some functions. Liu Yan was generally satisfied with this advanced mecha, but in terms of weapons, he planned to get a long sword instead of Liu Xiao's original axe. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.